Chapter 18:18. Old Mrs. Shin knew that the Yi family's parents had divorced a long time ago. Furthermore, they did not have a good relationship with Yi Tian. That was why she had spoken up. After saying this, she moved closer to him mysteriously and whispered, "Let me tell you, most people don't like women with this kind of appearance. They like women with round faces like yours. You look so beautiful and blessed." Yi Qianqian smiled and blushed. "Grandma, this is a tonic that Qianqian specially brought for you. It's obvious that it's very old. Take a look." Shen Jilia took out the ginseng that he had specially prepared for the old lady. "Look at how thoughtful my wife is." Old Mrs. Shen was delighted. She patted Yi Qianqian's hand and said, "It's great that you're here. You even brought a gift. You're too kind." However, he couldn't help but take a few glances at it. He brought it over and sniffed it. His eyes lit up. "This is good. This thing is hard to buy. Even if you have the money, you might not be able to buy it. My father made it himself. It's been there for a long time, but I heard that it's been preserved very well, so I brought it to you." "I knew it. Treasures of this level are all collector's items. So it really is a collector's item. Of course, I have brought you the best." Shen Jilia closed the lid with a smug look on his face. Qianqian put in a lot of effort on this trip. She brought tonics and tonic wine. She even brought good things for Mom and Dad. Old Mrs. Shen was even happier. She nodded and said, "You're so sensible. By the way, Qianqian, I heard that you're painting?" "No, Grandma, I was just staring at other people drawing, for example." In the beginning, Yi Qianqian was still a little nervous, but as she spoke, her words became smoother and smoother. In the end, he and the old lady laughed together, and after a while, they became one. Shen Jilia had been worried that she might not be used to it, but it was obvious that he had been overthinking things. Old Mrs. Shen was an old fox. After chatting with Yi Qianqian for a long time, she pulled her into her room and said that she wanted to talk about something private. How could Shen Jilia not let her go? He could only watch helplessly as his woman was dragged away. There were guests at home today. Shen Longyue and Mrs. Shen came home very early. As soon as he entered, Nanny he had already started preparing dinner. Madame Shen asked impatiently, "Where is he?" "He's inside. Grandma took him away. He's in the room." Madame Shen grinned from ear to ear and said, Okay. I'll go in and take a look. Mom will help you check." "You don't need to check. I've already proposed to her anyway. When I'm ready, we'll go get the certificate." When Mrs. Shen heard this, her heart calmed down. She smiled warmly and quickly walked in. On the other hand, Shen Longyue stepped forward and hooked his arm around his son's shoulder. He laughed heartily and said, "Good boy, quietly doing something big." "Of course, I have to treat my wife seriously. Once it's confirmed, it's confirmed. You're not changing it. Bah, what the heck? Where can I find such a good girl next time?" Shen Longyue laughed heartily, his face full of ridicule. "Then I want to see what kind of girl can make our second young master Shen so infatuated." Shen Jilia smiled smugly. "You'll like it too." In old Mrs. Ye's room, old Mrs. Yi was reading Yi Qianqian's palm. She frowned and asked, "Qianqian darling, has your hand been injured before? This palm reading doesn't seem right." Chapter 18:19. Suddenly, Yi Qianqian's heart skipped a beat. She looked at her palm. It didn't look any different from usual. What's wrong? Yi Qianqian's heart was a little uneasy. Looking at the old lady, she felt a little strange. She had heard of the old lady's mysterious ways. She had heard that she was a big believer in all kinds of nonsense. If she found out that something was wrong, she would never let it go. Yi Yuyu was a living example. If it weren't for the old lady, Yi Yuyu and Shin Luo might still be married. Although Yi Yuyu was happier with Li Jinnan than with Shin Luo was Yi Yuyu's first love. They had grown up together, and they had been in love for a long time. It was only right and proper for them to be together. Guan Kui had stayed in the hospital and hadn't interfered with them. Without the old lady's opposition, Shin Luo might have slowly discovered the good in Yi Yuyu, and their relationship would have slowly improved. Then, Yi Yuyu and Shin Luo could be together forever. However, the ideal was perfect, but in reality, the old lady was right in between them. When she heard the old lady's words, Yi Qianqian had a bad feeling. Your hand. Old Mrs. Shen's frown deepened. It looks pretty good. It looks rich and powerful. When were you born? Well. Yi Qianqian thought about it and decided to tell her her birthday. What time is it? It should be around midnight. Your 8 characters are a bit sinister, but your appearance is still not quite the same as Yu's. Your face is more rich and noble. Overall, you look quite blessed. But why is your hand broken in the middle? It looks a little unlucky. Yi Qianqian's heart beat faster. She asked, Grandma, what do you mean? To put it bluntly, it's a sign of a short life. When Yi Qianqian heard that, her hand shrank back in fear. A short life? Yi Qianqian was a little scared. Does that mean I don't have long to live? I don't know much about palmistry, but from what I can see, the one with the best fate is Yu Lily. You know Yu Lily, don't you? When old Mrs. Shen mentioned Yu Lily, she smiled happily. Lily, this child, was not very lucky before she turned 25. But after she turned 25, everything went smoothly for her. Yi Qianqian had heard Yu Lily mention it before. For a moment, she felt a little awkward and said, I seem to have heard Lily mention it before. It said that she's going to give birth to a son and a daughter. Lily recently went for a prenatal checkup, and it seems to be a child. Yes, Lily will give birth to a son and a daughter. I'm telling you, I'm a half-fairy. What I say can't be wrong. As old Mrs. Shen spoke, her eyes looked up and down Yi Qianqian's palm. She looked left and right before finally putting Yi Qianqian's hand down. Qianqian, can you tell Grandma if your hand was injured or was it born like this? Well, I was probably born like this. Yi Qianqian glanced at her palm. There was a faint red line on it. If one didn't look closely, they wouldn't be able to tell that this red line was different from other palm prints. Yi Qianqian stared at it for a long time before saying, I'm guessing that this is a birthmark. Death. Chapter 1820. Ever since Yi Qianqian could remember, this red line had been following her. Yi Qianqian had never doubted the origin of this red line. It was as if she had eyes and a nose since she was young. Yi Qianqian felt that it was a very normal thing. But how did this little red line become the sign of a short life in the old lady's mouth? Old Mrs. Shen nodded her head. There was an indescribable expression on her face. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Yi Qianqian and the old lady looked over at the same time. A lady who looked to be in her 40s or 50s walked in. It was obvious that she had taken good care of herself. Her exquisite makeup made her look very comfortable. Her eyes bore some resemblance to Shen Jilie's. She was probably Shen Jilie's mother. Mrs. Shen walked in and closed the door behind her. She stared at Yi Qianqian and approached her with a smile. This must be Qianqian. Hello, I'm Jilie's mother. Yi Qianqian had guessed it. When she heard that, she quickly stood up and greeted, Hello, Auntie. Sit down. Don't stand on ceremony with me. Mrs. Shen pressed Yi Qianqian back onto the sofa and said warmly, I've heard Jilia talk about you for a long time. I heard that you're an especially adorable and straightforward girl. You're pretty and have a good personality. It's great that our Jilia met you. Yi Qianqian's mood was already a little sour after old Mrs. Shen said that she would have a short life. When she heard Mrs. Shen's compliment, it was difficult for her to be happy. She laughed and said, He's just spouting nonsense. I'm not that good. How can you spout nonsense? I believe in my son. If he says you're not bad, then you're definitely not bad. Old Mrs. Shen looked at them and stood up. Keep Qianqian company. I'm going out for a while. Mom, it's time for dinner. Where are you going? I'm going to old Li's house. You guys go ahead and eat. Don't wait for me. Old Mrs. Shen waved her hand and walked out. Yi Qianqian didn't know why, but she felt a little strange. Old Mrs. Shen seemed to be treating her coldly. Was it an illusion? Yi Qianqian subconsciously looked at the red line on her palm. She clenched her fist and let it fall. Granny Shen was gone for quite a long time. Mrs. Shen led Yi Qianqian to the study. The two of them chatted for a long time. Shen Jilie could clearly hear their laughter coming from the study. Shen Longyue was sitting in the living room, talking to Shen Jilie. When he heard the crisp laughter, he couldn't help but laugh. Your girlfriend is amazing. It's rare for your mother to be this happy. Shen Jilia was very pleased with himself. Of course. Don't you know whose son chose her as his wife? Shen Longyue's smile widened. He pointed at Shen Jilia and said, "You only know how to suck up. Isn't that the truth? Like father like son. You can find such a good wife like my mother. How can I lose?" Humph, got it. Chapter 18:21. When Shen Jilia saw it, he immediately felt uncomfortable. He rushed forward to cover the photo and shouted, "D**minute Mom! What are you doing?" Mrs. Shen laughed out loud and said, "What are you doing? Photos are meant for people to see. What are you being shy about?" Yi Qianqian laughed out loud and said, "I didn't know you were so cute when you were a child." "Oh my, I'm so shy." Shen Jilia's face turned bright red. He immediately snatched the photo album away with a dark expression and said, "When was this taken? Why didn't I know about it?" "When you were 13, you sneaked out to the reservoir to swim and didn't come back for the whole morning. Everyone was scared out of their wits. Later, your father got angry and stripped you naked and threw you out at the door." Mrs. Shen laughed so hard that tears almost came out of her eyes. "At that time, you were still outside and refused to admit your mistake. At that time, there was no one walking around the door. Your brother went to take a picture of you as a souvenir. How could you forget such a deep impression?" "I forgot." Shen Jilia's face was redder than it had ever been. He hid the photo album and said, "Let's go eat." "Why are you looking at photos?" Yi Qianqian laughed even more wildly and said, "Your face is so red. It looks like it's real." "Shut up." Shen Jilia went forward and pulled her up. "Let's eat." Before Yi Qianqian could catch her breath, she was pulled out by Shen Jilia. Mrs. Shen looked at them from behind with a gratified expression. Yi Qianqian was pulled out, but she still recklessly pulled the photo album and said, "I haven't finished looking at it." "You're not allowed to look at it. How dare you look at my nude photos with my mother? Shameless. Go away. I didn't see anything." When Shen Jilia heard that, he reached out and pulled her into his arms. He whispered in her ear, "It's okay. I'll show you everything later." When Yi Qianqian heard that, her face immediately turned red. She glared at him and said, "Shameless." "How am I shameless? Don't look at it if you have the guts." As he spoke, he leaned over, not caring that he was in his own home. Yi Qianqian pinched his waist and gritted her teeth. "Your mother is still behind us." It didn't hurt, but Shen Jilia wanted to wail and say, "Oh my, I'm trying to murder my husband." Her voice wasn't soft, and Yi Qianqian was startled. She turned to look at Mrs. Shen. Mrs. Shen could not help but laugh as she looked at them ambiguously with a smile. Yi Qianqian's face grew hotter, and she pushed him away. "Get lost." Shen Jilia quickly leaned forward again. "Why are you scramming? This is my house. Come on, I'll take you to wash your hands and have dinner." The two of them pulled each other into the kitchen. Yi Qianqian felt extremely awkward and whispered, "Can you restrain yourself a little? Your parents are here." "Restrain what?" Shen Jilia pressed his head against her shoulder and said in a low voice, "I'm already very restrained. I almost kissed you when I was hugging you just now." Yi Qianqian felt even more humiliated. She turned her head and said, "You." Before she could say anything, Shen Jilia suddenly leaned in and planted a kiss on her lips. His voice was very loud, and Yi Qianqian was stunned. She immediately reacted and reached out to pat him. Shen Jilia took a step back and held her hand with a smile. He said, all right, let's wash our hands." Shen Longyue and his wife, as well as Nanny He, were all watching from behind. Chapter 18:22. "I heard she's Yu Yu's older sister?" Shen Longyue looked at his wife and said, "They do look alike, but Qianqian's face is a little rounder." "Yes, Mom seems to like her very much. She had a good chat with her in the room just now." When Shen Longyue heard that, he smiled and nodded his head. He looked at Yi Qianqian and Shen Jilia, who were washing their hands in the kitchen. "Mom rarely likes a young girl so much. It's not easy." Mrs. Shen looked at her husband with a smile and said softly, "Let's go wash our hands and eat." Shen Longyue smiled, stood up, and reached out to his wife. Mrs. Shen blushed slightly, but she still reached out and put her hand on her husband's palm. Yi Qianqian and Shen Jilia quickly finished washing their hands and sat down. The more Nanny He looked at the girl, the more she liked her. She said, "Qianqian, these are all dishes from Auntie He's hometown. They're all Auntie's specialties. Try them." Yi Qianqian smiled. "Yes. Thank you, Auntie He. Nanny He, why don't you sit down and eat with us?" Shen Jilia patted the stool next to him. Mother He looked flattered. She waved her hands and said, "No, no, no. Forget it. Old Madam won't be happy if she sees it." Shen Jilia understood and didn't want to force her. When Yi Qianqian saw this, her understanding of the old lady became even more horrified. This old lady looked a little scary. When Yi Qianqian recalled what the old lady had said about her short life, she felt a little uncomfortable. Nanny He brought Yi Qianqian a bowl of rice. Feeling a little embarrassed, Yi Qianqian asked, "Grandma isn't back yet. Aren't you going to wait for her?" "No need, let's eat first." Mrs. Shen waved her hand. "Your grandmother is always like this. She often goes out and doesn't see anyone. Sometimes, she will eat at a friend's house. We don't have to worry about her." Yi Qianqian nodded. But in his heart, he couldn't help but think, what if the old lady came back when they were halfway through eating? Would she say that he didn't know the rules and didn't show filial respect to his elders? The more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed. When she saw that everyone in the family was used to it, she slowly began to eat. Because of Shen Jilia's presence, Yi Qianqian didn't feel too restrained when she ate. All of a sudden, Yi Qianqian felt a warm sensation on her leg, and she shivered involuntarily. Her heart raced as she turned to look at Shen Jilia. Shen Jilia's expression was natural as he calmly ate his meal. Yi Qianqian pushed his hand away. At the same time, she felt someone looking at her. She looked up and saw that it was Madame Shen. Her face heated up, and she immediately lowered her head. The next moment, she felt another itch between her legs. She immediately clamped down, and her whole body went numb. She turned around and glared at Shen Jilia. Who would have thought that Shen Jilia's expression would be so calm and composed? Chapter 1823. But she didn't expose him. She lowered her head and continued eating. Yi Qianqian felt that she was about to become a slut. In public she actually, bah! It was all Shen Jilia's fault. Fortunately, Shen Jilia's parents seemed to be easy to deal with. She was afraid that if Shen Jilia's grandmother came back and saw it, would she? She lowered her head and blushed as she quietly finished her meal. Other than the few times when Shen Jilia would reach out and touch her, everything else seemed quite harmonious. Fortunately, old Mrs. Shen still didn't come back after they finished eating. After Yi Qianqian finished eating, she was about to help Nanny He clear the dishes when Shen Jilia pulled her away. Shen Jilia's parents were looking at them ambiguously, which made Yi Qianqian feel even more guilty. Could it be that the old couple had seen all those small movements just now? Yi Qianqian's cheeks were burning as she was pulled away. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Once they were out the door, Yi Qianqian retracted her hand and asked, "What were you doing just now?" "Ha! What do you mean what?" Shen Jilia played dumb. He blinked his eyes and looked at Yi Qianqian with an aggrieved expression. Yi Qianqian's face was still warm. She hit his hand hard again and said, "Your mother and father are still here, and you're touching me all over. I keep feeling like your mother is watching me." "I wasn't touching you all over. Don't accuse me wrongly," Shen Jilia exclaimed with his arms crossed. "Besides, isn't that how you usually eat? I'm used to it." Shen Jilia's words made Yi Qianqian feel even more ashamed. She roared, "Pfft! You're shameless. You're not usually like that." "I am. You're just used to it and can't feel it." "I'm not. Don't tell me you're always touching a girl's leg and suddenly forgot who you're doing it with?" Yi Qianqian narrowed her eyes and looked at him suspiciously. "How could that be? I only have you. You can't suspect me." Shen Jilia held Yi Qianqian in his arms and quickly began to express his loyalty. Yi Qianqian looked at him and snorted, but she couldn't help but smile. Shen Jilia saw the smile on her face and his lips curled up. He leaned forward and kissed her. Yi Qianqian was shocked and instinctively looked to her left and right. After confirming that there was no one around, she pinched his waist again and said, "You're so annoying. We're on the main road. What if someone sees us?" What's wrong with being seen? I'm kissing my own girlfriend, can't I? He held Yi Qianqian's hand and pulled her into his arms. No one usually comes here. Give me a kiss. Yi Qianqian's eyes lit up. No. Yi Qianqian turned to leave. How could Xinjilia allow that? He pulled her over and held her in his arms. Then, he kissed her passionately. Xinjilia skillfully penetrated her and squeezed her tighter and tighter. Yi Qianqian struggled for a moment, but it was futile. Chapter 1824. When he turned his head, he saw a woman in her 30s. She had a head of yellow curly hair and looked more mature. She looked at Xinjilia mockingly and said, "Oh my, it's really you. Can't you control yourself in public?" When Xinjilia saw that it was her, he rolled his eyes and said, "Hey, can you not interrupt me? Do you know how difficult it is to trick my wife into giving me a kiss?" The woman also had a look of disdain on her face. "Wife? Are you married? Why didn't I know about it?" "Soon. I'll call you when I get married." Yi Qianqian tried her best to cover her face with her hair. Her face was so red that it looked like she had applied layers of blush. She was so embarrassed that she couldn't lift her head. It was one thing to be seen, but judging from Xinjilia's tone, they seemed to be very close. The woman looked at Yi Qianqian and said, "Oh, it's a beauty. Aren't you going to introduce her to me?" Xinjilia put his arm around Yi Qianqian and said, "This is my girlfriend, Yi Qianqian." When Yi Qianqian heard that, she had no choice but to look up and extend her hand to the woman. "Hello. Hello. I'm Zhuang Kai Dai. I live next door." Zhuang Kai Dai looked at Yi Qianqian and suddenly looked surprised. She said, "Why does your girlfriend look a little familiar? Have I seen her somewhere before?" "Of course. Do you remember Yi Yu? Oh, your ex-sister-in-law? Of course I remember." After saying that, Zhuang Kai Dai looked as if she had suddenly realized something. She said, "I was wondering where I had seen her before. Are you Yi Yu's sister or sister? You look so similar. Even your names are similar." "Yes. We are twins. Not identical. We are heterozygotes. That's why we don't look alike." "I see." Zhuang Kai Dai smiled. "But you have good taste. Little Shen has been obedient since he was young. He has never brought a girl home. You're the first one I've seen." When Xinjilia heard that, he looked at Yi Qianqian with an aggrieved expression and said, See. Even Sister Kai Dai said so. I'm really a good boy. You can't doubt me in the future. I feel so wronged." Yi Qianqian glared at him. Faced with Zhuang Kai's suggestive gaze, she blushed and said, "I was just joking. I never suspected you." He held Yi Qianqian's arm and said, "That's right. I won't do anything to let you down. Isn't that right, Sister Kai Dai? I'm very loyal to you." "That's right." Zhuang Kai Dai rolled her eyes at him and said, "Forget it. All right, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. My child is still at home alone. Go home and feed the child." "All right, goodbye, Sister Kai Dai." Xinjilia couldn't have asked for more. He quickly waved his hand and urged them on. Zhuang Kai Dai was both annoyed and amused at the same time. She said, "You little brat, well done." She strode forward. "I'm leaving. Goodbye, Qianqian." "Goodbye, Sister Kai Dai." Zhuang Kai Dai walked over and brushed past Yi Qianqian. In a low voice she said, "If you're going to marry this guy, be careful when dealing with his grandmother. She's a tough nut to crack." With that, she pulled away from Yi Qianqian and waved at them. Yi Qianqian's heart skipped a beat. She immediately nodded. "I'm leaving." Zhuang Kai Dai finally left. Chapter 1825. What should I do? What should I do? She didn't know what to do at all. Yi Qianqian was a little absent-minded. Xinjilia quickly noticed. He looked at her and asked, "What's wrong?" Xinjilia's eyes lit up like stars. They were so bright that it moved her. Yi Qianqian calmed down and shook her head. "It's nothing. Why don't we go back?" Xinjilia nudged her with his shoulder. His eyes were filled with lust and excitement. They were tinged with an extremely ambiguous color. When Yi Qianqian saw the look in his eyes, she knew what he was up to. Yi Qianqian glared at him and turned to leave. No, it's a mess. Hey, hey, hey. What a mess. Watch what you say. Shen Jilia called out from behind. He strode to catch up with her and crouched down to look at her face. Then, as if he was surprised, he shouted, Wow, why are you blushing? I mean, I've been working overtime all day. I'm very tired. Yi Qianqian took large strides and walked around him as she continued forward. Shen Jilia followed and shouted, Where are you going? There's a small park in front of us. As soon as he said that, he seemed to realize something. He looked at her with disgust and shyness and said, You're so disgusting. How could you have such a perverted idea? Yi Qianqian couldn't hold it in any more. She laughed and pushed him away forcefully. In a low voice she said, Get lost. No, no, no. It's not good to get lost like this. What if someone sees us? Shen Jilia didn't know what was good for him. He leaned over and pulled her. Let's go back. I'm sleepy. Yi Qianqian saw the dark circles under Shen Jilia's eyes. She pursed her lips and nodded. The villa was huge. Shen Jilia led Yi Qianqian around before they returned home. Shen Longyue was sitting on the sofa watching TV. Nanny he had already finished washing the dishes and was tidying up the house. When she saw them, she smiled and nodded at them. Hello, uncle. Hello, Nanny he. Yi Qianqian greeted politely and followed Shen Jilia in. Shen Jilia had already entered his room and turned on the lights as soon as he entered. Yi Qianqian had originally thought that Shen Jilia's room would be decorated in a similar way. But who would have thought that it would be so different? A classic man's room. The first thing he saw when he walked in was an archery target on the wall, a heavy metal samurai shield, a Japanese army knife, a Swiss army knife, and a gun? Yi Qianqian walked in and stared at the AK hanging on the wall. Her eyes widened and she asked, Is this gun real? Shen Jilia glanced at it and chuckled. As he undressed he said, Of course it's fake. Yi Qianqian followed his voice and looked in the direction of his voice. She saw what he was doing and took a cautious step back. What are you trying to do? Shen Jilia turned his head and smirked. He strolled over and whispered, Guess what I want to do? Yi Qianqian took a step back and clutched her chest. The elders are still outside. Don't you dare mess around. What could I possibly do? Shen Jilia leaned forward with a smile. He lowered his voice and said, At most, I'll just keep my voice down. No one will notice. Bah! Shen Jilia burst out laughing. You're full of perverted thoughts. I'm going to take a shower. Just sit here. Chapter 1826. Yi Qianqian was startled. She stepped back, but he had already wrapped his arms around her and started kissing her. Yi Qianqian struggled a little. Shen Jilia held her firmly in his arms and slammed her onto the bed in an instant. You! Yi Qianqian had just gotten a chance to speak, but before she could say a word, her mouth was sealed again. Shen Jilia's upper body was bare. He spread his legs apart and pressed her beneath him. Hot kisses flowed along her neck. Yi Qianqian looked up and gasped uncontrollably. She put her hand on his back and patted him gently. You! Mom and Dad are outside. That's not good. Shen Jilia pressed his lips against her chin. He gently sucked on it and mumbled, They won't come in. Yi Qianqian rubbed his hair. Her breathing was a little uneven. She said, Go take a shower. I don't despise you. As Shen Jilia spoke, he had already unbuttoned her bra through her skirt. It doesn't matter how long you haven't washed it. I despise you. It's too late to despise me. You can't get rid of me. Shen Jilia's voice was low and husky. He leaned into her ear, and his warm breath was on her neck. Yi Qianqian was so sensitive that her whole body trembled. But she felt like flying. Shen Jilia couldn't wait to press her against him. His slightly rough hands stroked the insides of her clothes. Yi Qianqian felt his presence. Her cheeks turned red, and her heart raced. They were still in his house. If his family found out, would they think that she was very lewd? Shen Jilia didn't seem to be aware of it. He unzipped the back of her dress and slowly removed it from her shoulders. Her snow-white skin was exposed, and it made one's blood boil. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Shen Jilia paused. Yi Qianqian's body stiffened. They looked at the door at the same time. Yi Qianqian was so nervous that her heart was about to jump out. Yi Qianqian pushed him away, got up, and straightened her clothes. Shen Jilia shouted with displeasure. "Who is it?" "Your grandmother," he roared. Yi Qianqian almost laughed out loud. "Why does it sound like he's scolding me?" When Shen Jilia saw the expression on Yi Qianqian's face, he kissed her on the lips in displeasure. He slowly straightened his pants and walked toward the door. Yi Qianqian hid herself and fastened her skirt. Shen Jilia had already opened the door. Old Mrs. Shen was standing in the doorway with a dark expression on her face. Shen Jilia made up his mind and looked at the old lady. He raised his eyebrows slightly and asked, "Grandma, what's wrong?" "What about the girl?" "He's inside." "What's wrong?" Shen Jilia had a bad feeling about this. Yi Qianqian did the same. She strode forward. When old Mrs. Shen saw Yi Qianqian, she immediately went forward to hold her hand. Yi Qianqian was shocked by the suddenness of the situation. She exclaimed, "Grandma, what's wrong?" Shen Jilia quickly pulled Yi Qianqian back and asked, "Grandma, what are you doing? Let me see your hand again." Yi Qianqian's heart was filled with apprehension. She extended her palm. "Male left, female right. Show me your right hand." Yi Qianqian's heart beat faster. She extended her right hand. Shen Jilia frowned. He pulled Yi Qianqian's hand back unhappily and said, "Grandma, how many times have I told you not to believe in such superstitious things? What have you heard this time?" Chapter 1827. Old Mrs. Shen took Yi Qianqian's hand and looked at it. She frowned and said, "I was right. This girl can't do it." Yi Qianqian's heart skipped a beat. She was embarrassed. Shen Jilia's expression darkened as he said, "Grandma, I'm the one getting married, not you. Previously, when you liked Lily, I listened to you and pursued her. But now, I like Qianqian. Can you support me?" Yi Qianqian's expression darkened. "No, this girl will die young. You can't marry her. You'll die young too." Old Mrs. Shen stomped her feet in anger. "Would I harm you? I'm doing this for your own good. Jilia, don't make me angry. If I say no, it means no." "Grandma, you don't have the final say in this world. But I have the final say in this family," old Mrs. Shen yelled. "You can't be with her." Yi Qianqian's heart trembled. She forcefully pulled her hand back. She was so embarrassed that she couldn't even force a smile. She took a step back and said, "Old Shen, don't argue with the old lady. I'll leave." Shen Jilia's expression darkened. He pulled Yi Qianqian over and yelled, "No!" Yi Qianqian was shocked. Her heart was pounding. Shen Longyue, his wife, and Nanny He were all watching. Yi Qianqian's eyes were burning. She struggled and said, "No." Shen Jilia's voice was softer than before, but it was still firm. "Grandma, you should stop doing such superstitious things. Do you know how many people you've harmed because of your superstition?" "I've harmed people?" Old Mrs. Shen's eyes widened in disbelief. "When have I harmed anyone?" "Shen Jilia, are you still my grandson?" "It's precisely because I'm your grandson that I'm reminding you. Think about Sister Manting, my brother, and Yi Yu. Which one of them didn't suffer because of you? Think about it. If you hadn't been so alarmist, would my brother and Yi Yu have gotten a divorce? If you hadn't been superstitious and believed that Sister Manting would bring good luck to our family, would Sister Manting have become what she is now? Think about it. Which of these superstitious things you've said are true?" Old Mrs. Shen couldn't believe it. "Are you doubting me?" "Yes, Grandma. I really don't believe in these things. This is the era of science. I can explain to you what you're thinking with medical science." Old Mrs. Shen stomped her foot in anger. "You little rascal. I didn't make you a doctor to deal with your grandmother. No matter what, I'm a doctor now, and I believe in science. Qianqian is my woman, and I will be responsible for her. Today, I brought her home just to tell you that I'm going to get married. I'm going to have a wife. This is just a notice, not an application. Whether you agree or not, I'm going to marry this woman." Shen Jilia's tone was very firm. He stared at his grandmother without the slightest hint of wavering. Yi Qianqian hadn't expected Shen Jilia, who usually seemed so frivolous, to say something like that at a critical moment. His heart felt warm, but at the same time, he felt a little uncomfortable. His heart felt like it was being grabbed by a hand, and he felt so suffocated that he felt like he was suffocating. She thought that the most difficult part was over, and that she would be able to enter the marriage hall without any hindrance like an ordinary person. Chapter 1828. I'm doing this for your own good. Why do you have to be so stubborn? Old Mrs. Shen gritted her teeth. I've already told you that this girl has a short life. I'll go to an old friend. She won't live past 28. That's impossible. Shen Jilia's face darkened. Grandma, you have to be so alarmist. Be careful that I don't fall out with you. Old Mrs. Shen looked at Shen Jilia and trembled with anger. She shouted, You! How can you treat your grandma like this? I'm telling the truth, Grandma. You have to accept reality. Besides, it's impossible for me and Qianqian to separate now. Shen Jilia held Yi Qianqian in his arms and looked around. He enunciated each word clearly. Qianqian is pregnant. I can't wait any longer. I want to get married as soon as possible. Yi Qianqian was instantly stunned. She turned to look at Shen Jilia and reached out to touch her belly. Pregnant? When did she get pregnant? Why didn't she know? Shen Jilia seemed to feel her gaze. He lowered his head and looked at her gently. He said, I'm sorry. I couldn't help it, but I really had no choice. Grandma is very stubborn. If I don't tell her the truth, I'm afraid she'll force us to break up. Yi Qianqian blinked. She didn't react. Everyone looked at them in disbelief. At the same time, their eyes shifted to Yi Qianqian's belly. Yi Qianqian felt goosebumps all over her body. She laughed dryly and said, Why, can't you stand it? Now, if people know that I'm pregnant before marriage, it won't be good. It's okay. I have to marry you before your belly grows up. Shen Jilia looked at Yi Qianqian gently and said softly, I can't let you and the child down. Yi Qianqian couldn't stand it anymore. Under everyone's gaze, her face became redder and redder. She lowered her head and tugged at Shen Jilia's clothes without saying another word. Mrs. Shen was also in disbelief. She said, Oh my God, Jilia, I thought you knew what to do. Why did you wait until now to bring it back for us to see? Shen Longyue was also dissatisfied. He frowned and said, Humph. You only brought it back now? Those who don't know better will think that the Shen family is a gangster family. Old Mrs. Shen stomped her foot, pointed at Yi Qianqian, and said, This girl's palmistry and physiognomy show that she can't have children. How can she be pregnant? Jilia, don't lie to me. Yi Qianqian's heart skipped a beat. Her hair stood on end, and she felt guilty. She wasn't pregnant. She couldn't be clearer about it, but this old lady could tell at a glance and even concluded that she couldn't have children. Could it be? Was it really possible that she wouldn't live past 28? Pooh. Impossible. Impossible. She was in good health. How could she not live past the age of 28? But if it was true, she was 26 years old this year, and there were only 2 years left before she turned 28. Then Shen Jilia's eyes turned cold. He held Yi Qianqian in his arms and said coldly, Nanny, you've made a mistake. Old Mrs. Shen was infuriated and bellowed, Shen Jilia. Shen Jilia held Yi Qianqian in his arms as he stepped back and said, We're going to bed. The fetus needs to rest. Good night, Mom, Dad. Old Mrs. Shen was even angrier. Shen Jilia had actually said good night to his parents, but not to her. She was obviously telling the truth. It was impossible that she was pregnant. This girl couldn't get pregnant. She knew Shen Jilia's temperament all too well. If he really married the girl, when the time came, he would probably be alone for the rest of his life. Chapter 1829. However, Shen Jilia was a stubborn man. How was she going to convince him? Old Mrs. Shen was so worried that her freshly dyed black hair was about to turn white. She stared at her grandson's room door and stomped her feet in anger. When Shen Longyue saw old Mrs. Shen's reaction, he stepped forward and said, Mom, the children and grandchildren have their own happiness. As elders, we shouldn't interfere too much. I'm doing this for his own good. When have I ever harmed my own family? Old Mrs. Shen yelled anxiously. Shen Longyue didn't say anything. He pulled her and said, All right. Let's go to sleep. The children are going to sleep too. But, go. Old Mrs. Shen was at a loss for words. She turned her head back to look at Shen Jilia's room 3 times with every step she took. In the end, she walked back into the room. Shen Longyue walked back to the sofa. Mrs. Shen and Nanny He were already sitting on the sofa. Seeing Shen Long come over, Madam Shen said, I don't think this child will be short-lived. Although I don't understand these things, this girl looks like she has good fortune. Her life isn't short either. How could she be short-lived? Hearing that, Nanny He chimed in and said, I think so too. This girl is very sensible. Besides, didn't old madam say that she can't have children? Isn't she pregnant now? Shen Longyue took a sip of tea and snorted. Do you really think it's true? I'm afraid it's just something that Jilia made up. In fact, Mrs. Shen was also suspicious. Hearing her husband's words, she was even more certain. She asked, Why didn't you say anything just now? The son will make his own decisions. As his elders, we just need to support him. Shen Longyue put down the teacup. It's rare for our son to like this girl so much. I also think that she's not bad. If we listen to our mother, I'm afraid it won't be appropriate. That's right. Didn't you say that young miss would be blessed? In the end, young master. Nanny He immediately realized that something was amiss and stopped. But after thinking about it, she continued, Now she's living alone outside with a pregnant belly. It's not easy. Is this considered blessed? Young miss has suffered all her life and thought that she would be able to enjoy a good life once she came to our home. In the end, isn't this the end? Shen Longyue lit a cigar and frowned, but he didn't say anything. Mrs. Shen sighed and said, Perhaps Manting's good fortune hasn't arrived yet. She's already 30 years old. Half of her life has passed. If she doesn't enjoy life now, her whole life will have passed. Nanny He spoke bluntly. The scene was silent. After Shen Jilia pulled Yi Qianqian into the room, he locked the door. Because of the drama, the atmosphere in the room was completely gone, and the mood was gone. Yi Qianqian clutched her stomach and asked, When did I get pregnant? You'll be pregnant from now on. Shen Jilia sat on the bed and said, If you don't have one now, let's make one. As long as you're still willing to marry me, let's hurry up and get our marriage certificate tomorrow. Tomorrow is Sunday. Then I'll go again on Monday. I'm going back to Kingstown. I've already bought the plane tickets. Yes, let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and take a day off. Shen Jilia stood up and wrapped his arms around her waist. He gently kissed her on the lips. I'm sorry for making you feel aggrieved just now. I didn't know that Grandma would suddenly say something like that. Yi Qianqian smiled bitterly. I was still mentally prepared. Yu was tortured so badly by your grandmother, so there's no reason that everything would be smooth sailing for me. Now that I've finally confirmed it, it's not going to be smooth sailing. Chapter 1830. When Shen Jilia heard that, he poked her on the head and rebuked, It's not up to Grandma to decide whether things will go smoothly or not. If you want to marry me, we'll be together. What if Grandma doesn't agree? It doesn't matter. She'll agree. Yi Qianqian felt that something was wrong. She frowned and thought for a moment before saying, I think what Grandma said might be true. Didn't she say before that Yu was fated to get married again? Now that Yu has gotten married again, what if Yi Qianqian really died and didn't live past the age of 28? Impossible. Grandma is just spouting nonsense. Grandma claims to be a demigod, so half of what she says is true, and the other half isn't. Based on what Yu said earlier, I'm guessing that Grandma has the intention of urging them to divorce. She's just trying to prove that what she said is true. Yi Qianqian was stunned. Shen Jilia continued, Grandma has rarely been questioned in her life, especially when she has set her mind on something. She won't change her mind easily. Grandma is a little paranoid. Is that an illness? Yes, it's a psychological illness. It's not serious, but it's difficult to treat. Moreover, Grandma is very uncooperative. Shen Jilia gently stroked Yi Qianqian's head and softly said, Grandma is used to being domineering, but I won't let Grandma affect us. Okay. Yi Qianqian still felt that it was inappropriate. She looked around the room and said, Why don't I go back first? I don't think it's appropriate. I've never had a boyfriend, and I've never met my boyfriend's parents. But is it appropriate for us to stay together? Let's sleep in separate rooms. It's okay. My parents are very democratic. No, I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think other people would stay with their boyfriends the first time they meet their parents. When Shen Jilie saw Yi Qianqian's insistence, he thought for a moment and said, "All right then. I'll go to a hotel with you." "Ha! You're going too?" "Yes. Why don't you sleep next to me? I have an empty room next to mine. Sister Manting used to live there, but it's empty now." "That isn't appropriate." Yi Qianqian blinked and felt even more uncomfortable. "Then we'll go to a hotel. But do you think my parents will think we eloped?" Yi Qianqian was speechless. After thinking about it, he finally decided to stay in Shen Manting's room. After informing his parents, Shen Jilie took the key and opened the door for Yi Qianqian. He took a clean bed and laid it on the bed. After tidying up the room a little, he allowed Yi Qianqian to move in. The room was very clean, even though it had not been occupied for a long time and had no smell. On the bedside table was a photo of Shen Manting. She looked particularly beautiful and alluring. She was sitting in front of the piano and smiling elegantly. Shen Manting was indeed very pretty. No wonder Shen Luo and couldn't control himself. Chapter 1831. Horoscope. Yes, horoscope. Shen Jilie looked at the photo on the bedside table and said, "Grandma is very strange sometimes. Sometimes she looks at people's faces and palms, but Sister Manting looks at horoscope." How did Grandma get her horoscope? Grandma went to the orphanage to look for it. Shen Jilie glanced at Yi Qianqian with a strange expression on his face. He said, "Grandmother always believed that her granddaughter was still alive. She said that if her granddaughter could come back, she would have no regrets in her life. She searched for her for more than 20 years. If she's still alive, she'd be about 28 or 29 years old now." So Grandma went to the orphanage to look for an orphan of that age? Yes, but because of this horoscope, she found Sister Manting. Based on her horoscope? Yes, she found her. After she brought her back to the capital, she did a paternity test and found that she wasn't our child. Yi Qianqian was speechless. But Shen Manting is already an adult. Why did she come back with Grandma? Yi Qianqian had automatically changed from your grandmother to Grandma. No matter how you looked at it, it seemed like a curse. She was still in school at that time, and an orphan's tuition had to be sponsored. Sister Manting's expenses were relatively high. When she first came back, she was dressed well, but she was too skinny. Later on, she became even more beautiful. So, she was seduced because she had ulterior motives. Maybe she wanted a better life, so she left with Grandma. Or maybe she just wanted a family. Shen Jilie held Yi Qianqian's hand and said with sympathy and regret, she was too lonely living. Achoo! It was a scorching hot day, but Shen Manting sneezed. It was late, but the stack of papers was still unmarked. Shen Manting's eyelids were fighting to stay open. She yawned and suddenly felt the little guy kick her in the stomach. Shen Manting's yawn was interrupted, but her lips were filled with a happy smile. Shen Manting gently stroked her belly. Her heart was warm. Fortunately, the baby was with her now. Finally, it was 11:30 p.m. Shen Manting tidied up the papers and put them away before walking into her small bathroom. Ever since old Mrs. Shen's last visit, Shen Manting had gritted her teeth and changed her residence. From the easternmost side of the village to the westernmost side. He even specifically told the villagers that if anyone came to look for him, they must tell them that he had moved away. The people who lived there were all uncles and aunties. Shen Manting had a close relationship with them, so they were very willing to help her with this small favor. Although the monthly rent was 100 yuan, the small house was bigger and closer to the town, so she could earn some extra money from the summer cram school. Speaking of which, it was a blessing in disguise. After taking a shower, Shen Manting felt extremely sleepy. Shen Manting's 5-month-old belly was not obvious on her tall and strong body. It was just that his waist was a little sore sometimes, but other than that, it was not a big problem. Fortunately, the baby was very obedient and only vomited a few times. Chapter 1832. It was a 15-minute drive from the town to the village. It was not far, But it was not close either. Shen Manting paid the fare, and someone immediately offered her a seat. After thanking the driver, Shen Manting arrived at her destination without a hitch. The scenery along the road was beautiful, and the morning air in the countryside was refreshing. When she arrived at the town, Shen Manting got out of the car and went to the summer cram school with her test paper. However, she didn't expect to see a familiar figure at the door before she entered the school. A tall man was leaning against the stone pillar at the door of the cram school with a cigarette between his fingers. The smoke was rising, and it was hard to see his face clearly under the glaring sun. When he saw Shen Manting coming over, the man straightened up, put out the cigarette, and walked over slowly. Shen Manting felt as if her heart was hit hard by something, and she almost suffocated. She stepped back, and almost at the same time, Shen Manting wanted to escape. Shen Luoan's eyes darkened, and he shouted in a low voice, "Shen Manting!" However, when Shen Manting heard his voice, she quickened her steps. Shen Luoan rushed forward and reached Shen Manting in a few steps. He grabbed Shen Manting's arm. "Ah!" Shen Manting screamed and struggled frantically. Shen Luoan held her down with both hands and whispered, "That's enough. Calm down." Shen Manting couldn't stand it anymore. Her heart was pounding like a hammer and she shouted, "Let me go." "Who are you?" The cram school was located in the bustling area of the town, and there were many people coming and going. When they heard the shout, many people looked over. Someone recognized Shen Manting and immediately came over and shouted, "What are you doing?" "Let go. Everyone, catch him." Shen Luoan's face darkened when he heard that, and he shouted, "I'm her husband, and I'm here to take her home." "I'm not. He's not." Shen Manting shouted loudly, "I don't know him at all. Let me go." Shen Manting's words made the people around more vigilant. They all came over and said, "What are you doing? Are you trying to abduct a woman? I've seen this kind of scam many times. You can't fool me." A rough man came up and threatened. Shen Luoan was a weak doctor who spent most of his time in the operating room and laboratory. How could he deal with such a situation? When Shen Manting saw more and more people around, she felt relieved. She looked at Shen Luoan and shouted angrily, "Let me go or you'll be in serious trouble." "Manting, let's talk." Compared to Shen Manting, Shen Luoan was much calmer. "The child can't live without a father. Let's talk first. Whether you want to go back with me or not is up to you. Tell them to go away first." This kind of formation was indeed a little terrifying. Shen Manting looked around at the many men who had gathered around and were ready to make a move. She knew that this was no joke. Pursing her lips, she nodded and said, "I'm sorry, big brothers. He is the father of my child." But he was not her husband, much less her lover. When the surrounding people heard this, they were also suspicious. They said, "Big sister, don't be afraid of him. We're all trained. Just shout and we'll help you take care of him." "No need, no need. I'm serious." "Thank you, brother." Upon hearing Shen Manting's words, the men walked away. Shen Luoan looked at Shen Manting with cold eyes. He glanced at her belly and said, "You've grown up. You're pregnant with my child, yet you don't want to live a good life. What are you doing in this shabby place?" Chapter 1833. When Shen Manting heard this, she stared at Shen Luoan and sneered, "How do you know this child is yours? Shen Luoan, you think too highly of yourself, don't you?" "Not mine." Shen Luoan took a step forward, and his eyes were very gloomy. "Then whose is it?" "It's none of your business. Anyway, it's not yours." Shen Manting's eyes were very cold. She looked at the man in front of her and felt only sarcasm in her heart. "What? After coming out of prison, you finally want to be a human being? Wasn't I a human being before? You have always been a beast." Shen Manting's tone was harsh, and she sneered coldly. Shen Luoan was not annoyed. He looked at her calmly and asked, "If I am a beast, then what is it that is being pressed by a beast?" Shen Manting gritted her teeth and subconsciously stroked her belly. She whispered angrily, "Don't talk nonsense with me. What do you want?" "Take my child home." Shen Luoan put his hands in his pockets and looked at Shen Manting. "Anyway, this child will be my first child. I don't want him to live outside without a name. I said this is not your child." Shen Manting looked at Shen Luoan with a sarcastic smile. Do you think I will keep a child for you? You are too naive, Shen Luoan. He gritted his teeth and sneered. You can't change anything even if you talk big. Come back with me. I'll give you a good life. It'll be better than before. You can have whatever you want. Shen Luoan knew that Shen Manting was speaking out of anger, but he couldn't help getting angry. No need. Shen Manting looked at Shen Luo, and as if she was looking at a fool. Why do you think I will go back with you? To tell you the truth, every time after sex, I will take the morning after pill, so it can't be your child. Shen Luo tightly pursed his lips and stared at Shen Manting, trying to see a little guilt on her face. But Shen Manting's expression at the moment was full of sarcasm, as if she was laughing at him for overestimating himself and laughing at his wishful thinking. Shen Luo's anger surged. He gritted his teeth and growled, You're courting death? That's strange. If it's not your child, then it's seeking death? The sarcastic smile on Shen Manting's face became even more radiant. She said, I shouldn't have anything to do with you in the first place, brother. He stared at Shen Manting's bare face. Even though she didn't have any makeup on, her facial features were still very delicate. His complexion did not look too good, and his lips were a little pale. However, it was this face that made Shen Luoan's heart clench in pain. Shen Manting wasn't supposed to be like this. She was like a canary in his cage. Every day, she was bright and beautiful. Every move she made had an infinitely enchanting elegance. Now, in this small place, she had become a pregnant woman in the countryside. It shouldn't have happened. But what he shouldn't have done the most was that she had called him brother. Brother. Shen Luoan put his hands in his pockets and took a step forward. Have you ever seen a brother and sister in bed? I hadn't seen it before I met you. After I met you, I realized that there are more than just people in the world who walk on their feet, Shen Manting sneered. It turns out that there are also some beasts in human clothing. Chapter 1834. Do you think you can finish scolding me? Shen Manting curled her lips and was about to enter the cram school. I can't finish scolding you. This child has nothing to do with you. If you don't have anything else to say, you should go back. I think our relationship is a little awkward now. It's better not to see each other, lest my husband sees us and causes unnecessary misunderstandings. You have a husband? Shen Luoan frowned and asked sharply, When did this happen? Do I need to report to you when I have a husband? Shen Manting's face turned cold. Who do you think you are? Shen Luoan suppressed his anger and said calmly, Forget it. I'm not here to quarrel with you today. If you have something to do, you go ahead. I'll wait for you here. Don't wait for me. I also have a serious job. I have to work here until night. You're a pregnant woman. You have to work until night? Can't a pregnant woman work until night? Shen Manting's expression didn't look good. She turned around and left. Work in the cram school was actually very easy. The students who came to the cram school were from relatively well-off families in the town or children who didn't have good grades. They were usually between the ages of 8 to 15, and the boys were more mischievous. Therefore, Shen Manting only graded homework in the office, helped with the grading of test papers, and occasionally took over when the teacher took a break. However, Shen Manting was a little absent-minded at work today. The thought that Shen Luoan might be waiting for her outside made her feel uncomfortable. She was nervous and afraid. Shen Luoan was a person that she had to guard against. Shen Manting subconsciously stroked her belly. Her heart was beating very fast. What should we do? Baby, your father is coming to take us back. Yi Qianqian rested in Shen Manting's room for the night and woke up early the next day. She looked at the time. It was only 7 o'clock. She looked around the room. It was very simple. The cabinet at the bedside was locked. There must be something important in it. Yi Qianqian was always curious about Shen Manting. This woman had a lot of stories and was very courageous. She chose to escape after knowing that she was pregnant. She went all the way to a small village in Jiangnan. When Shen Jilia told her about it the night before, Yi Qianqian was shocked. If it had been him, he might have just aborted the child or simply made a compromise and stayed in this place. After all, the Shen family seemed to treat her quite well. It was only after these thoughts flashed through her mind that she suddenly remembered that there was still Shen Luoan. Forget it. I'll take back what I just said. She got up and found a new set of toiletries in the bathroom of the suite. After cleaning herself up, she changed into a clean set of clothes and walked out. Outside, Shen Longyue and Mrs. Shen were already sitting at the dining table. Shen Longyue was reading the newspaper, while Mrs. Shen was carefully spreading jam on the bread. "Hello, Uncle Auntie." When Mrs. Shen saw Yi Qianqian walking out of Shen Manting's room, she was a little surprised and asked, "Jilia, you're still asleep, aren't you?" Yi Qianqian glanced behind her. Chapter 1835. Yi Qianqian felt that something was amiss and asked, "Yes. What's wrong?" "It's nothing. It's just that Manting's room has been vacant for a long time. Why is Jilia living there? He didn't even ask Nanny He to clean it up." "It's all right, Auntie. It's quite clean and comfortable inside. Jilia brought me a set of clean bedding. I lay down and fell asleep." Yi Qianqian smiled innocently. Mrs. Shen's expression visibly relaxed. This made Yi Qianqian even more curious. Was there something in Shen Manting's room that couldn't be seen by others? Everyone in the family was having breakfast. Nanny He went to Shen Jilia's room to call for him. She called him twice before there was a response. After about 10 minutes, Shen Jilia came out in his pajamas. He looked like he had just woken up. "Good morning, Dad." "Good morning, Mom." "Good morning, Nanny He." Shen Jilia yawned and said, "Good morning, wife." Yi Qianqian was a little embarrassed. In the words of Northerners, wife was equivalent to wife. Yi Qianqian blushed slightly. She sat by the side and took the breakfast that Nanny He had prepared for her without saying a word. Shen Jilia sat next to Yi Qianqian naturally. He glanced at her and asked, "Where's Grandma?" "She's still in the room. I just went to call her, but she seems to be in the middle of a divination," Nanny He whispered. "Old people always think too much. You young people don't have to worry so much. This is the era of science. It's better not to believe in such superstitious things." "We won't believe it. No matter what, Grandma has ruined my brother and sister Manting. I won't believe in such nonsense again." Shen Jilia took the breakfast that Nanny He handed him and asked, "By the way, where has my brother been recently? I heard that he's on a business trip. Who knows? He often disappears without a trace." Shen Longyue was reading the newspaper. When he spoke, he put the newspaper away and said, "Take good care of Qianqian. Since she's pregnant, there are some things that you have to pay attention to. I have an important meeting in the next 2 days, so I have to go on a business trip. The day after tomorrow, we'll visit Qianqian's house and propose marriage." Yi Qianqian couldn't react. Was she pregnant? She felt guilty and glanced at Shen Jilia. She didn't know what Shen Jilia's skin was made of, but he looked very calm. He nodded his head and said, "Sure. Qianqian still has to go back to work. She'll be returning to Kingstown tomorrow. I have to go back to the hospital and apply for leave." "All right, you guys go first. Your mother and I will be there the day after tomorrow." "What are you going to do the day after tomorrow?" An old voice with a bit of vitality could be heard. The old lady walked over and said, "What do you want to do?" "Grandma, it's time for dinner," Shen Jilia called out. At the same time, he nudged Yi Qianqian. Yi Qianqian immediately called out, "Grandma." Old Mrs. Shen didn't look too happy and said, "You want to propose the day after tomorrow? Betrothal gifts?" "Yes, Mom. Please sit down and talk." Mrs. Shen stood up and pulled out a stool for old Mrs. Shen. "No, I don't agree." Old Mrs. Shen shoved the stool back. Qianqian has a short lifeline on her hand. Of all the places to put it, it just had to be on her lifeline. "Mom, what era is it now? Do you still believe in such things? It's fine as long as the child likes it." Chapter 1836. Old Mrs. Shen's words were very direct. As she spoke, she looked at Shen Longyue with an unhappy expression. Yi Qianqian felt a little awkward. She had heard from Yi Yuyu that if the old lady didn't like someone, she could be very merciless. Previously, when she liked Yu Lily, Yi Qianqian hadn't noticed this characteristic of the old lady. But now, Yi Qianqian had witnessed it clearly and had no choice but to believe it. However, to Yi Qianqian's surprise, Shen Jilia had previously said that he didn't have much of a love life. She had never believed him. Now that she had received confirmation from the old lady, Yi Qianqian couldn't help but look at Shen Jilia again. How can you curse someone like that? Qianqian is fine now because of your curse. Shen Jilia looked a little angry. It was fine in the first place. Qianqian has always been living well. Now, you want her to die at 28 years old with just one sentence. How can you do this? Jilia, I don't want to do this either. I know that it's rare for you to like a girl, but I'm just playing it safe. Shen Jilia pursed his lips and didn't say another word. He stood up and took Yi Qianqian's hand to leave. When old Mrs. Shen saw this, she panicked and yelled, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to have my fortune read to see if it's as mysterious as you say." Shen Jilia took Yi Qianqian's hand and walked away from the dining table in a few steps. When old Mrs. Shen heard that, she snorted and said, "Do you still need others at a time like this? The experts that your granny know are all over the place." "How could your people have met my wife?" "They just listen to what you say," Shen Jilia said. Shen Jilia was a little annoyed. "I think she's very good. She even brought you a gift. She's not bad to you. Why do you have to slander her like this?" "What do you mean slander? If I hadn't read her fortune, would I have said that to you? Why didn't you read Lily's palm at that time? Lily's physiognomy is very good. You can tell at a glance what her fortune is like. But when Qianqian first came in, you said she had the face of wealth." "She did have the face of wealth, but her life was short," old Mrs. Shen said matter-of-factly. "I can't let you marry a short-lived woman. You're so stubborn. If she really dies..." "Bah!" Shen Jilia was furious. "Grandma, as an elder, you're cursing the younger generation. You're also a self-proclaimed half-immortal. Don't you know that's a taboo?" Old Mrs. Shen was speechless. "Grandma," Yi Qianqian suddenly spoke up. She looked at old Mrs. Shen and said, "What you're saying is that I'm destined to live a life of riches and honor, and that I'm destined to die young, right?" "That's what I think, and that's the conclusion I got from my old friend." Old Mrs. Shen looked at Yi Qianqian with pity in her eyes. "It's not that I don't like you but our Jilia." Chapter 1837. Yi Qianqian's words were clear. She pulled out all of her family's wealth and laid it out in front of them. Shen Jilia silently hugged Yi Qianqian tightly and comforted her. Yi Qianqian glanced at Shen Jilia and continued, "When I was in high school, my grandmother contracted a very serious illness. At that time, she underwent continuous chemotherapy for several years. After struggling for several years, she finally couldn't take it anymore and passed away. At that time, our family was in dire straits. I had to work outside to be able to pay for my normal living and school fees. When I was in college, I almost dropped out, but my best friend helped me. That's why I'm where I am today. Grandma, does this kind of fate count as a life of wealth to you?" Yi Qianqian's words were very firm. She looked at old Mrs. Shen, and every word that came out of her mouth was unquestionable. Old Mrs. Shen frowned when she heard that. Shen Longyue and Mrs. Shen were a little moved when they heard that. "It's not easy for anyone to live in this world. I started from scratch, but your grandmother still said that I didn't accomplish anything in my life." Shen Longyue took a sip of milk and said with a sigh, "Although your grandmother wasn't a psychic back then, she still went to ask her old friends and came to the conclusion. There's no difference." "Longyue, how can you talk about your mother like that? Mom, times are different now. Don't believe in such things anymore." Shen Longyue looked helpless. "Jilia isn't young anymore. It's not easy for him to find a girl he likes. Why do you have to break them up? You've said it yourself that doing such a thing will shorten your lifespan. It's my own grandson. It doesn't matter if my life is shortened. I'm doing it for Jilia's sake." "I don't believe in such things." Shen Jilia held Yi Qianqian in his arms. "Let's go." "Shen Jilia." Shen Jilia ignored her and led Yi Qianqian into his room. Yi Qianqian looked at Shen Jilia and asked, "Do you really not believe it?" Shen Jilia rummaged through his closet and took out a set of casual clothes. He looked at Yi Qianqian and said, "Of course not. Didn't I tell you last night? But I think it's better to believe in these things." He turned to look at Yi Qianqian as if he had seen a ghost and asked, Yi Qianqian, do you really think you're going to die? Yi Qianqian turned her head away in embarrassment and said softly, actually, someone has said something like that before. Shen Jielia frowned. He looked at Yi Qianqian and waited for her to continue. Right in front of our town, there's a blind man. We call him Uncle Blind Man. Uncle Blind Man is possessed by a god. It's said that he can invite both gods and ghosts. He read your fortune for you? Not really. I thought he was just joking. What did he say? He said, the little girl's life isn't bad, but you have to be careful of villains and be careful of your life. Did he really say that? I don't remember the specifics, but that's the general idea. Shen Jielia was silent for a moment. He took off his clothes and put on a shirt before saying, let's go back to Yun Town and get to the bottom of this. Can't we wait until tomorrow? Didn't they say that they would register their marriage on Monday? Chapter 1838. I'm going to get the household registration booklet, Shen Jielia said softly as he held Yi Qianqian's head in his hands. We're going to get our marriage certificate tomorrow. Your grandfather passed away, and I haven't visited him yet. I'll go pay my respects tomorrow. Yi Qianqian was stunned. How did you know? Your sister told me about it yesterday. Shen Jilia's eyes were filled with guilt. I'm sorry. It's just a quarrel. I shouldn't have ignored what's going on around you. If you hadn't told me about it yesterday, I'm afraid I wouldn't have known about it today. Yi Qianqian pursed her lips, suddenly feeling a little sad. She opened her arms and hugged Shen Jilia. In a soft voice she said, it's not your fault. It's all my fault. I didn't trust you. Shen Jilia rested his chin on her head and whispered, Qianqian, no matter what happens in the future, you must trust me. As long as you ask me, I won't lie to you. Yes. If I've done anything wrong to you, you're welcome to stab me to death with a knife. Yi Qianqian burst out laughing. She slapped him on the chest and said coquettishly, go away. If I stab you to death, I'll have to go to jail. Shen Jilia smiled and gently released her. He packed a few simple clothes and stuffed them into Yi Qianqian's suitcase. Then, Shen Jilia dashed into his parents' room, flipped through the household register, and snuck back. When Yi Qianqian and Shen Jilia walked out, old Mrs. Shen was having breakfast. Seeing that they were carrying a bag, he immediately became alert and asked, where are you going? I'll leave first. Grandma, uncle, auntie, thank you for your hospitality. Yi Qianqian smiled and said, I have to work tomorrow. If I rush back today, I'll be able to work tomorrow. Where is Jilia? Of course I'm sending her to the airport. While he was at it, he could also go to Cloud Town for a walk. However, Shen Jilia didn't finish his sentence. He simply picked up Yi Qianqian's suitcase and walked out. The two of them hailed a taxi and arrived at the airport in about 50 minutes. After buying the nearest ticket to Cloud Town Airport, the two quickly boarded the plane. When they arrived at Cloud Town, it was around 11 o'clock in the afternoon. The two of them ate something on the plane and went straight home. Some people in town were surprised to see Yi Qianqian. However, when they saw the young man beside her, they began to talk among themselves. Isn't that Yi Qianqian's ex-boyfriend? The one who did that to Feng Tongtong? I don't think so. They did that kind of thing and they're still together? If that's not the case, then she's changing men too quickly. Of course, Yi Qianqian also noticed the gazes around them, but she didn't care. She pulled Shen Jilia along and headed home. When they entered the house, Yi Zhenhua was very surprised. He looked at Yi Qianqian and Shen Jilia and exclaimed, You! Why are you together again? Chapter 1839. Hello, Grandpa. Shen Jilia knelt down as well. I'm Xiao Shen. I'm sorry that I didn't come to see you one last time when you passed away. But don't worry, I'll treat your granddaughter well in the future. I won't let Qianqian be bullied. I swear here. After Shen Jilia finished speaking, he placed the incense sticks in the ground and kowtowed 3 times. Yi Zhenhua looked at Shen Jilia intently and said, I hope you're not making empty promises. Although Qianqian is a girl, she's still a treasure in our family. Don't worry, uncle. I'll treat Qianqian well. I'm here now to tell you that I've already spoken to my family. My father said that he'll come to propose marriage in 2 days, but I want to register my marriage with Qianqian first. Shen Jilia sounded very sincere when he said this. He stared at Yi Zhenhua and almost called him Dad. Yi Qianqian felt a little uneasy. She was still concerned about what Shen Jilia's grandmother had said. What if she really couldn't live past the age of 28? What should she do? Moreover, according to old Mrs. Shen, it seemed that it would be very difficult for her to get pregnant. Yi Qianqian felt a little sad. She looked at Shen Jilia's sincere eyes and suddenly felt that it was a little unfair to him. Old Shen, Yi Qianqian called out, interrupting Shen Jilia's words. Shen Jilia looked over, and Yi Zhenhua also turned his head to look at his daughter. Yi Qianqian looked at Shen Jilia and said, "Let's talk first." Shen Jilia had a bad feeling about this. He looked at Yi Qianqian and asked, "What do you want to say?" "Come with me." Yi Qianqian pulled Shen Jilia out of the room. Shen Jilia was pulled away. When he saw Yi Qianqian's solemn expression, he felt that something was wrong. Yi Qianqian pulled him into the room. Shen Jilia stared at her and asked, "What do you want to say?" I think. When Yi Qianqian saw Shen Jilia talking to her father, she felt that she had a lot to say. But now, she couldn't say a word. Huh? Shen Jilia raised his eyebrows. "What's wrong?" "I think there must be some basis to what your grandmother said. After all, this kind of thing is superstition, but hasn't China believed in this for 5,000 years? It's best if it's not true, but if it's true and I really die at 28, then enough." Shen Jilia's expression darkened. "Yi Qianqian, what do you think I like about you?" "Ha!" Yi Qianqian couldn't react for a moment. "You're so timid. Do you really believe what Grandma said?" Yi Qianqian didn't say anything. Her attitude was equivalent to a silent agreement. Shen Jilia grew even angrier. He said, "Even if you're really dead, I'll accept it. Who asked me to choose this path?" But Shen Jilia emphasized the last two words. "Grandma's words can't be trusted. I've never believed Grandma's words. She even told me a bunch of nonsense about fortune-telling. She told me how great I'd be in this life and how beautiful my future wife would be. But look in the mirror now. Is she beautiful?" Shen Jilia's eyes widened. The corners of Yi Qianqian's eyes twitched. She couldn't react for a moment. "She said that the child I gave birth to would be smart, but look at yourself. With your genes, do you think you can be smart?" Chapter 1840. Shen Jilia held her down and said, "I'm just giving you an example. Look, it turns out that grandmother's words aren't accurate. Sometimes you're just unlucky. It's just a coincidence. We're not married yet. Who can guarantee that I'm the wife your grandmother said you're going to marry? Besides, grandmother said it's difficult for me to have children. I think your wife might not be me, but someone else." Shen Jilia lost his temper. A sense of helplessness and defeat engulfed him from the bottom of his heart. "Yi Qianqian, do you really believe grandmother's words?" Yi Qianqian pouted. She seemed to be acting coquettishly and aggrieved. "I don't want to believe it either, but didn't she say that Yu would have a second marriage? Didn't it come true? I think she forced Yu to divorce my brother. Is she going to let her die alone? A second marriage is only a matter of time." "Is that so?" Yi Qianqian didn't quite believe him. However, when she saw the obvious unhappy expression on Shen Jilia's face, she nodded and said, "That seems to make sense. Anyway, I don't believe in that." Shen Jilia reached out and pinched Yi Qianqian's face. "You're not allowed to believe it either. Didn't you say that there's a blind uncle in town? Let's go take a look." "Now." "Yeah." Shen Jilia pulled her. "Since we're already here, we'll naturally go look for the blind uncle after paying our respects to grandfather." "All right. Let's go buy some gifts." Yi Qianqian walked into the house and picked up her purse. She was a little hesitant. "What's wrong?" Yi Qianqian looked very uncomfortable. She looked at Shen Jilia and said, "On our way to the blind uncle's house, we'll pass by a small shop. We can buy some gifts on the way." "Ha! Let's go then." Shen Jilia didn't notice the problem. "But that small shop is owned by Feng Tongtong." Yi Qianqian smiled, but there was a hint of awkwardness in her smile. She said, "Why don't we take a detour? It'll be awkward if we see her." What's there to be awkward about? Shenjilia glanced at her. We're going to show her what we look like now. Shenjilia straightened his clothes and pulled Yi Qianqian out. Wait a minute. Yi Qianqian tugged at him. Don't you know what happened to Tong Tong? How could I not know? I'm one of the people involved. Shenjilia found it funny and smiled. She confessed to you afterward, didn't she? No. Yi Qianqian could tell that Shenjilia didn't seem to know anything about Fong Tong Tong. She struggled for a moment and looked at Shenjilia. She suddenly found it difficult to speak. Shenjilia raised his eyebrows slightly. What are you trying to say? It's... When my grandfather passed away, she came to look for me. She said some disgusting things to me, so I chased her away. Well done. But something happened to her on her way home. Yi Qianqian's expression was grave, and Shenjilia could vaguely sense that things were not as simple as they seemed. There's a high school classmate in our town. Some time ago, he came back to the town to settle down. His father has some mental problems. When he was young, his wife ran away with someone. That day, for some reason, he was squatting in the woods. When Tong Tong passed by, he dragged her in, and then... Chapter 1841. Yeah. Shenjilia's calm voice rang out. He didn't seem to have much emotion in it. Shenjilia looked down at Yi Qianqian and said softly, I know. Yi Qianqian was stunned and looked up. Shenjilia clearly saw the sadness in Yi Qianqian's eyes. He reached out and gently caressed her face. You told me yourself. Have you forgotten? Yi Qianqian didn't react. I told you? Yeah. Shenjilia seemed a little helpless. A few days ago, when you called me for the first time, you told me. Is that so? Yi Qianqian suddenly remembered and nodded. Yes, I told you. You told me that Fong Tong Tong cried a lot after the incident, and her mother was also very sad. That's what you said. Yeah. Do you know why I called you at that time? Why? When Fong Tong Tong's accident happened, it was the second day after my grandfather passed away. I went to the hospital to visit her a few times. She was in a very bad state at that time. During the examination, the doctor said that she had a torn vagina. Shenjilia looked at Yi Qianqian. Yi Qianqian felt a little guilty. She lowered her head and said, After she was discharged from the hospital and grandfather's funeral was over, I returned to Kingstown the next day. That's why I called you. So, after you found out that I never had sex with her, you wanted to get back together with me, right? Yi Qianqian blushed, but she still braced herself and nodded honestly. Shenjilia took a deep breath. He didn't know whether he was angry or helpless. He raised his hand and waved it to the side, but he didn't know what to do. Yi Qianqian quickly pressed his hand down and said, I was wrong. Well, that's good too. At least the facts proved my innocence. Shenjilia sighed and said, But it's a pity for Fong Tong Tong. I didn't expect her to be a virgin. Yeah. Yi Qianqian felt a little sorry for her. But it's still necessary for us to show our faces. These are two separate matters. We're just going out to buy something. It's not like we're deliberately provoking her. Let's go. Shenjilia held Yi Qianqian's hand and headed out. Yi Qianqian was dumbfounded. She was dragged along by him. When Yi Qianqian arrived at the entrance of Fong Tong Tong's shop, she looked at the store that she had not seen in a long time. She felt a little sour in her heart. Shenjilia didn't feel too emotional. He pulled Yi Qianqian forward and stood in front of it, looking around. Fong Tong Tong was stunned when she saw them. Yi Qianqian smiled and waved at her. Hi, Shenjilia asked. Do you have candy? The kind that comes in a gift box. When Fong Tong Tong heard Shenjilia's words, she felt a little upset. Fong Tong Tong pursed her lips and stood up. She replied, I do. What flavor do you want? Whatever, as long as you can give it to someone. Shenjilia acted as if he didn't know her. I'm going to look for the blind uncle that Qianqian mentioned. I'm going to ask for his horoscope so that I can propose marriage in a few days. Fong Tong Tong's hand, which was in the middle of retrieving the candy, shrank back. She was a little annoyed. When he turned his head, he saw Yi Qianqian tugging at Shenjilia. Are you guys getting married? Feng Tongtong asked. Shen Jilia raised his eyebrows slightly. Yeah. Didn't you say that you didn't want to get married? Why are you thinking about it now? Feng Tongtong asked as she looked at Yi Qianqian. Chapter 1842. When Shen Jilia said this, he raised his eyebrows slightly, and his smile was still as bright as the sun. Just like when they first met. However, the current Feng Tongtong was no longer the Feng Tongtong of the past. Yi Qianqian looked at Feng Tongtong's obviously unhappy expression. She tugged at Shen Jilia and said, Tongtong, I feel that we're not young anymore. Since we're going to get married sooner or later, I wanted to ask about candy? Yeah. Feng Tongtong placed the box of candy in front of them and placed it in a nice-looking bag. Take it. You don't have to give it back. That won't do. Favors are favors, and business is business. Shen Jilia took out his wallet. I'm a person who likes to be clear about things. Yi Qianqian felt that there was something wrong with Shen Jilia, but she couldn't tell what it was. There seemed to be nothing wrong with his every move and every word. Shen Jilia took out $100 bill and placed it on the counter. How much is it? Feng Tongtong looked at the bill and felt even more uncomfortable. She pushed the bill back. I've stayed in your house for a few days, and I haven't paid rent yet. It's only a few $dozen. Take it. Shen Jilia looked at her. Feng Tongtong's eyes were a little red, and he could vaguely see her embarrassment. All right. Shen Jilia took the money back. Thank you. As he spoke, Shen Jilia picked up the box of candy and turned to leave. Yi Qianqian looked at Feng Tongtong with a complicated expression. She sighed in her heart. After thinking about it, she said, Then, we'll leave first. Yeah. Feng Tongtong replied dryly as she watched them leave. After they left, a shout came from inside the house. Tong-tong, it's time to eat. Feng Tongtong stared ahead and said after a while, Mom, Qianqian is getting married. When Mrs. Feng heard this, she walked out and said in disbelief, So soon? Didn't she just break up with her man? They're dating again. They just came to buy candy together and said they wanted to go to Uncle Blind Man's place to get their horoscope. Mrs. Feng was a little surprised. How can this girl talk about marriage in the year her grandfather passed away? It's inauspicious. You have to remind her. But after saying that, he suddenly thought of something. He looked at his daughter and said, Forget it. In any case, it has nothing to do with us. Let's eat. It's all done. Yeah. Feng Tongtong stood up and headed inside. Yi Qianqian rarely visited the area. Although she knew that the blind uncle lived in the area, she didn't know which house he lived in. Along the way, he finally found the place where Uncle Blind was. The blind uncle lived in a one-story bungalow. The outside of the bungalow was rough. As soon as he walked in, he was amazed by the antique style inside. Before he even entered the door, he could already smell the thick scent of incense. There was a praying mat inside, and on top of it was an altar, on which various bodhisattvas were enshrined. Yi Qianqian didn't know much about it. She only recognized Guanyin Bodhisattva, Manjushri Bodhisattva, and Sakyamuni Buddha. As for the rest, Yi Qianqian only saw their appearances and didn't know their names. He's here. Yi Qianqian was startled when she heard a slightly hoarse voice. A short figure with a stooped back walked out from the inside slowly. Chapter 1843. Uncle Blind Man's eyes were devoid of any darkness. Yi Qianqian was a little frightened at first glance. Shen Jilia calmed down a little. He glanced at Yi Qianqian and said, Is this Uncle Blind Man? His voice was very soft. Yi Qianqian nodded her head. Uncle Blind Man chuckled softly. I knew you would come. Do you find it a little hard to accept? He was speaking in the dialect of Yun Town. Shen Jilia didn't quite understand, but Yi Qianqian's expression immediately changed. She looked into Uncle Blind Man's eyes with some lingering fear. She seemed to be very nervous and asked, Uncle, how did you know I would come today? Buddha told me. Uncle Blind Man's expression was natural. There was no darkness in his eyes, but at that moment, Yi Qianqian felt that he had seen through everything. With this realization, Yi Qianqian felt a little creeped out. Don't be afraid. Come, Come in and have a seat. Uncle Blind Man turned around and walked briskly. He crossed one threshold after another, passed through the temple, and finally reached the hall inside. Yi Qianqian held Shen Jilia's hand and followed him in. As she walked, she felt more and more strange. Shen Jilia was still holding the candy in his hand. Yi Qianqian saw it and picked it up. Uncle, I brought you some candy. I'll put it on the table for you. That's very kind of you, good girl. Uncle Blind Man took out 2 stools from inside. They were invisible, but they didn't bump into anything along the way. Have a seat. Shen Jilia found it a little strange, so he didn't stand on ceremony and sat down. Uncle Blind Man walked in front of Yi Qianqian and said, "Give me your hand." Yi Qianqian's heart was beating fast. She stretched out her right hand. There was a red line on this hand. The red line happened to cross the lifeline, and it crossed the career and marriage lines diagonally. Uncle Blind Man caressed Yi Qianqian's hand. He touched the back of her hand, and then the palm of her hand. Shen Jilia watched from the side, and his brows furrowed. That's not right. If Uncle Blind Man hadn't been blind, Shen Jilia would probably have thought that he was taking advantage of Yi Qianqian. 8 characters. The old and steady voice was hoarse. This time, Shen Jilia understood. Yi Qianqian immediately told him her horoscope. The blind uncle nodded and said, "My fate is good. My 8 characters are wonderful. I was born at the most auspicious time of the year. If I was born 2 hours earlier or 2 hours later, it would be a great misfortune. This is fate." Yi Qianqian had always believed in such things. When she heard what he said, she actually felt a little scared. Bring prosperity to your husband and children. Bring prosperity to your father and mother, but not to your in-laws. If you get married, don't live with your in-laws. You have to be careful of villains. When Yi Qianqian heard that, she immediately understood what was going on. Could it be Shen Jilia's grandmother? Other than Shen Jilia's grandmother, it seemed that everyone else in the Shen family was pretty good. "Uncle," Yi Qianqian said, "some elders say that I'll live a short life. What do you think? Beware of villains. If the villains succeed, you might become infertile." Yi Qianqian's heart skipped a beat. Those words seemed to match up with what the old lady had said. But you don't have to worry too much. There are causes and effects in this world. If you do good and accumulate virtue, the heavens will see it. Uncle Blind Man had a smile on his face. His fingers caressed Yi Qianqian's palm. His fingers slid across her smooth palm, repeatedly touching the thin red line. 5 minutes can only be 4 minutes. There is still a midnight makeup. Chapter 1844. Shen Jilia couldn't help but ask, "What is he doing?" No matter how he looked at it, Shen Jilia felt that he was taking advantage of Yi Qianqian. Yi Qianqian shook her head gently at him and turned to look at her hand. Uncle Blind had a smile on his lips the entire time. "Is this your boyfriend?" "Yes, Uncle. We plan to get married." "Well, you can get married, but it's not the right year," the blind man said. "Your luck isn't good this year. It's best to get married after you're 28. Yi Qianqian was shocked. 28? "Yes, 28. The blind man smiled. 28 is your lucky year. You can get married before that, but your luck will be a little worse." "Worse?" "Yes, worse." He held Yi Qianqian's hand and said, "I left this thread for you. Your sister's luck isn't good, but yours is. When you were born, your father asked me to give some of your luck to her. How is your sister doing now?" Yi Qianqian's eyes widened in shock. "That's right." "Ah." Yi Qianqian was a little dizzy. "That's my sister." The blind man shook his head. "She's my sister. I'm older than her by more than an hour. You were born nearly 2 hours earlier than her, but she's your sister." The blind uncle smiled amiably. "It's not good for a woman to have too much luck. If you break your luck and make up for your sister's luck, then your luck will be even. But now your sister's calamity has passed, but your calamity has yet to arrive." "Disaster." Yi Qianqian was a little flustered. "What disaster?" The blind man shook his head. "I don't know. You'll know when the time comes." The time had come. When would it be the time? Yi Qianqian subconsciously glanced at Shen Jilia. Shen Jielia had been paying attention to them, but they had been speaking in a dialect for a long time. He still didn't know what they were talking about. Can I still get married? 28. Is the disaster a villain? It might be, and it might not be. It was ambiguous. Yi Qianqian could tell that the blind man didn't know either. Her heart sank as she continued. Should I show you my boyfriend's horoscope? You can look but don't look, Uncle Blind said. There are experts in his family. Don't offend them. She hadn't said anything, but the blind uncle already knew everything. It's him, Chi. She said that my life would be short and I wouldn't be able to have children. The red thread in my hand was a short lifeline, but it was broken on my lifeline. I'm going to die at 28. The blind uncle chuckled and said, Not really, but it's really not good for the man's family. She deliberately exaggerated it, but it's not that serious. So she doesn't want us to be together? I don't know. Yi Qianqian sighed softly, feeling a little defeated. For a moment, it was as if she had learned a lot of things. However, she would rather not know about them. That way she would be more at ease. Young people shouldn't sigh. Good luck will be sighed away. The blind uncle patted Yi Qianqian's hand. Just wait. When the time comes, everything will be fine. Thank you, uncle. Your boyfriend likes you very much, but you have to be careful of villains. She had to be careful of villains again. How many villains did she have to be careful of? Chapter 1845. After listening to the blind uncle's words, Yi Qianqian suddenly felt as if her life had been spoiled. But when she thought about it carefully, she didn't seem to have anyone around her that she needed to guard against. Feng Tongtong used to be her best friend, but now she didn't dare to trust her anymore. It was difficult to draw a tiger's bones just by drawing its skin. You might know a person's face, but not his heart. However, what did Uncle Blind Man's last sentence mean? Don't guard against others. Was he talking about Feng Tongtong? After chatting with the blind uncle for a while, Yi Qianqian left some money for him to buy some supplements for his health and left. After she came out, Yi Qianqian said to Shen Jielia, Uncle said that we might not be able to get married this year. Why? Shen Jilia's expression became solemn. Why can't we get married? Is it because your grandfather passed away this year? Well, that's one of the reasons, but... Yi Qianqian pulled Shen Jilia along and said as they walked, Uncle said that my luck is too good, and my sister's luck is too bad, so he gave half of my luck to my sister. Now my sister's disaster is over, but my disaster has yet to come. As she spoke, she looked up at Shen Jilia with an aggrieved expression and said, The disaster is coming. I might not be able to conceive. What do you mean? What disaster? Shen Jilia felt that it was a fantasy. What the hell? If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have come here. I didn't understand a single word of what you said just now. You didn't translate it for me so that I could question him in person. How could I? I'd rather believe it than not. I think I should believe it. Besides, didn't your grandmother also say that I might not be able to conceive? That's impossible. Shen Jilia stopped walking and turned sideways to hold her face. That's because we used to use contraception for fear of getting pregnant. Why don't we try not to use contraception in the future? Aya, now is not the time to talk about this. Yi Qianqian felt a little annoyed. Uncle has always told me to be on guard against villains. How can I have so many villains around me? Ha! Speaking of which, didn't you meet one before? Who are you talking about? Yi Qianqian looked at Shen Jilia as if she had already guessed it. Is it Tong Tong? What do you think? Uncle also told me not to be too guarded against people. I think Tong Tong is still kind after all. It's just that she was a little confused about the previous matter. There will definitely not be such a thing in the future. You still want to reconcile with her? No. Yi Qianqian was a little sad. But, after all, we've known each other for so many years. I think... Yeah, got it. Shen Jilia held her in his arms. Did he tell you who you should be wary of? Who would tell you like that? Wouldn't that be a prophecy? Was what he said before not a prophecy? Shen Jilia raised his eyebrows. There's nothing different. Did he tell you what kind of disaster could cause infertility? I don't know. Yi Qianqian scratched her head. It's a villain. That's why it's the same as not saying anything. You can't say that. At the very least, I'll be on guard. Yi Qianqian held his arm. But we can't get married this year. What will happen if I get married? My luck will suffer another setback. In other words, I'll be even more unlucky. When Shen Jilia heard that, he immediately gave up, but he was still a little unwilling. When can we get married? You're already 26. Chapter 1846. Shen Jilia's eyes widened as he stared at Yi Qianqian, and the expression on his face became indescribable. No matter how he looked at it, the expression on Yi Qianqian's face didn't look like she was joking. After a long while, Shen Jilia asked weakly, "Did that blind uncle tell you that?" "Yes," Yi Qianqian said. Yi Qianqian also hoped that it wasn't true, but the blind uncle had no reason to trick her. Nodding his head, Shen Jilia looked at her and sighed. Young people shouldn't sigh. Shen Jilia looked at her and raised his eyebrows slightly. Yi Qianqian repeated Uncle Blind Man's words and said, "When young people sigh, they will sigh away all their good fortune." Shen Jilia smiled, but at the same time, he felt a deep sense of helplessness. He held Yi Qianqian in his arms and asked, "What should we do? What else can I do?" Yi Qianqian hung her head. "Didn't grandmother say that I might not live past the age of 28? It's better not to get married. Otherwise, you'll have to mark me as a widower on your household register. How ugly would that be?" Shen Jilia rubbed her face and said through gritted teeth, "You're talking nonsense." She looked at Shen Jilia and pouted. In a muffled voice she said, "It's 2 years. If one of us has a change of heart or has an affair, there's still a chance to turn things around." "Tisque." Shen Jilia released her face and held her in his arms. In a gentle voice he said, "In that case, I should be on my guard and keep an eye on you. I can't let you have the chance to come into contact with the flowers and plants outside." "Hey, I'm just afraid that you'll have a change of heart." "Don't worry, it can't be me." Shen Jilia's face was full of confidence. He lowered his head to look at Yi Qianqian's face and whispered, "You won't either." Yi Qianqian's heart warmed, and a triumphant smile appeared on her face as she replied, "Humph. Of course I won't. I'm so devoted and devoted." As she spoke, she bumped into Shen Jilia. Shen Jilia gently bumped into her. "Shall we go back to Kingstown?" Yi Qianqian slammed into him again and grunted. "Yeah, let's go back. We can't get married anyway." Shen Jilia chuckled and opened his arms to hug her. "Isn't it just a certificate? We'll leave it at the Bureau of Civil Affairs for now. We'll take it back when we're in a better mood." Yi Qianqian was amused by him and pinched his waist. "Why are you so shameless?" "Ha ha ha, let's go back and tell your father." By the time they returned to Kingstown, it was already dark. By the time Shen Jilia and Yi Qianqian arrived home in a taxi, it was already past midnight. As soon as he got out of the car, he saw a few police cars parked at the entrance of the neighborhood. Red and blue sirens flashed. Yi Qianqian looked inside, confused. Shen Jilia went up to a policeman and asked, "Officer, may I ask what's going on?" The policeman glanced at him and Yi Qianqian. His eyes fell on their suitcases and he asked, "Do you live here?" "Yes, we'll stay here." The policeman quickly took out a small booklet and said, "Which building and which unit?" Can I ask what happened?" "A real gun was found in the garden of your neighborhood, and drug residue was also found on the handle of the gun. They are now doing a screening." Both of their hearts trembled when they heard this. Chapter 1847. After cooperating with the police for an investigation, Yi Qianqian and Shen Jilia were registered with their identification cards and proof of residency from the property management to prove that they were residents of the neighborhood. After confirming that there was nothing out of the ordinary, they were released. The entire process took half an hour. Although it wasn't a big deal, Yi Qianqian still felt uncomfortable when she encountered such a thing. She looked up at Shen Jilia and asked, "Why did this happen out of nowhere? I feel like my luck hasn't been too good recently. Why do I keep encountering such unpleasant things?" "It's okay. Don't overthink it. The more you think about it, the more unpleasant it will feel." Shen Jilia patted Yi Qianqian's head. All right. Wash up and go to sleep. I'll call the hospital. I won't be going back tomorrow. You didn't ask for leave. Yi Qianqian secretly clicked her tongue. That works. Aren't you afraid that the hospital will fire you? Don't worry. The people at the hospital want me more than anything. Shen Jilia patted her head. Go take a shower. Okay. Yi Qianqian stretched and found her pajamas in the room. Then, she went into the bathroom. Shen Jilia helped her pack her luggage and put it away before he went to do his own things. Yi Qianqian was exhausted. Her eyelids were fighting to stay open in the shower. When she was done, she saw Shen Jilia on the phone on the balcony. She greeted him and went back to her room to sleep. Shen Jilia's lips curled up slightly. He leaned against the railing of the balcony. Suddenly, he caught a glimpse of a fire from the corner of his eye. He saw it unintentionally, and it was extremely clear. Shen Jilia's heart skipped a beat. When he turned his head to look, there was no trace of it. It was as if he had been hallucinating. Shen Jilia immediately thought of what the police had said to them in the neighborhood. There might be a drug addict with a gun in this neighborhood. A drug addict was scary enough. If he had a gun and lost control of his emotions, it would be very dangerous. Shen Jilia pursed his lips and looked around. After making sure there was nothing out of the ordinary, he closed the floor-to-ceiling windows on the balcony and entered the room. He walked into the room slowly. When he saw Yi Qianqian sleeping soundly, he felt relieved. He adjusted Yi Qianqian's sleeping position and covered her with a blanket before he went to take a shower. But halfway through, a scream came from outside. No! It was Yi Qianqian. Shen Jilia made up his mind. He immediately opened the door and rushed out. Shen Jilia. Yi Qianqian's voice was much softer than before. He rushed into the room barefoot and turned on the lights. She had kicked the blanket away. Her eyes were tightly shut, and her hair was slightly disheveled. Shen Jilia heaved a huge sigh of relief. He stepped forward and pulled Yi Qianqian back. Yi Qianqian shuddered and snapped out of her reverie. The light in the room was a little dazzling. She squinted her eyes and saw the person in front of her clearly. Shen Jilia had bubbles on his head, and he wasn't wearing any clothes. When Yi Qianqian saw him, she immediately perked up. Her eyes widened as she asked, "What are you doing?" When Shen Jilia saw her reaction, he was both annoyed and amused. "You scared me to death. Do you know what kind of dream you just had?" Feeling a little embarrassed, she asked, "Was I talking in my sleep?" Chapter 1848. Yi Qianqian looked at him and blushed. She gave him a kick and said, "Go wash up before you come back." Shen Jilia had no choice. After washing up, he wrapped a bath towel around himself and walked out. As soon as he came back and sat on the edge of the bed, Yi Qianqian came up to him and hugged him from behind. Shen Jilia's heart softened. He put his big hand on her soft hand and asked softly, "What did you dream of just now?" "I dreamed that you took our child to jump off a building." Yi Qianqian pouted and looked aggrieved. "I called you from below and kept telling you not to, but you still walked forward and threw the child down." Shen Jilia laughed and turned to look at Yi Qianqian's pitiful look. He reached out and flicked her forehead. Yi Qianqian immediately covered her head. Her eyes were watery, and she pouted. When Shen Jilia saw this, he suddenly felt that he had done something wrong. "Does it hurt a lot?" Sob, sob, sob. Yi Qianqian opened her arms and hugged him. "Why did you throw the child down?" Shen Jilia was speechless. He couldn't help but laugh as he hugged her. "Hey, I didn't. I told you that it was a dream. Dreams are always the opposite. Look, we don't even have a child now." Yi Qianqian's sadness was suddenly blown away by his words. She clenched her fist and hammered it on his chest. Then she pushed him away. "Go away." Shen Jilia wasn't pushed away. He held her hand and lay down. "It's easy to solve the problem of not having a child. Let's have one." Yi Qianqian blushed and glared at him. She looked down at his lower body, which was only wrapped in a bath towel. She knew that he had planned this. She pushed him with her knee. "I don't want to. I want to sleep." Then you sleep. I'll be gentle." "You, Resistance was futile. Yi Qianqian was still firmly suppressed. Other than biting the landlord who bullied her, She couldn't control herself. When it was over, Yi Qianqian was so sleepy that she couldn't open her eyes. Shen Jielia kissed the corner of her lips and said, "Let's move to a bigger place." Yi Qianqian opened her eyes and asked, "Why?" "Just now, when you were showering, I thought I saw someone smoking nearby. But when I looked closely, there was no one. I feel strange. It's not safe here." "Are you seeing things?" Yi Qianqian suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. "Did you see it from the balcony?" "Yes. There's a winding highway in front of our building, and there aren't many houses around. How could we see someone smoking?" When Yi Qianqian asked the question, the hair on her body suddenly stood on end. "Really? I'm probably seeing things, but I don't feel very comfortable." Shen Jielia leaned over her and gently rubbed her face. "Let's change. We can also sell this place and get a bigger one." "Yeah." Yi Qianqian looked up at him and said, "Yu gave me this apartment. I have to ask Yu first before I can sell it." "It's okay. If you agree to change, I'll go and see which neighborhoods are better. This one is fine." "Okay, then go and take a look. Don't buy something too expensive. A safer neighborhood will do." Yi Qianqian touched his face. "But I don't have much money. My bank account." Chapter 1849. Yi Qianqian blinked and shrank her head. "No, it's not like I don't want to live here. I can't put all the burden on you. It's very expensive to buy a house in Kingstown." Shen Jielia chuckled. "I can still afford the down payment. Don't worry." "How big are you going to buy?" "Bigger than this. This is only a little over 70 square meters. About 150 square meters. Oh, won't it be too big for the two of us? Most importantly, it's expensive." "No, we'll have children in the future. I don't think it's enough." Yi Qianqian looked up and asked, "Oh, aren't you going back to the capital?" "You can go back to the capital if you want. If you want to settle down in the capital, you can leave the house here or sell it." "Okay." Yi Qianqian was touched beyond words. She hugged Shen Jielia tighter and nestled in his arms. "Why are you so good to me?" Yi Qianqian had never experienced all kinds of accommodations and pampering before. Shen Jielia gave her all the feelings she imagined a relationship should have, and he also gave her all the qualities a husband should have. He had an outstanding family background, an admirable career, and an appearance that was hard to ignore. If it had been the Yi Qianqian of the past, she would never have imagined that her man would be like this. It was so perfect that it was unrealistic. Shen Jilia's lips curled into a smile, and he said proudly, "Because I'm going to abduct you. If I don't treat you well, what if you get abducted by someone else?" Yi Qianqian laughed and buried herself deeper. "Sleep. I'm so sleepy." "Okay." Shen Jilia held her hand tightly and closed his eyes. When the alarm clock rang, the sky was already bright. Yi Qianqian's body was a little sore. When she opened her eyes, Shen Jilia was sleeping soundly with her in his arms. All of a sudden, he raised his hand and slapped the alarm clock down. Yi Qianqian got up and pushed him away. She yawned and got up to get dressed. Shen Jilia opened his eyes and saw her snow-white back. The hickeys on it were particularly eye-catching. But soon after Yi Qianqian put on her clothes, he couldn't see them anymore. "Wake up. It's Monday. Don't you have to go to work?" Yi Qianqian pulled the blanket over his head. Shen Jilia stretched his back and tossed the blanket aside. He sat up and pounced on her. Yi Qianqian couldn't react in time. She let out a cry of surprise when he pounced on her. Shen Jilia planted a kiss on her cheek and said, "I'm not going to work. What do you want to eat? I'll make it for you." Yi Qianqian pushed him away and said coquettishly, "You scared me to death. What are you doing?" "I'll just buy some at the subway station when I go to work." "That won't do. I don't think those are fresh. Wait a moment. I'll see what I can make for you," Shen Jilia said as he stood up. Yi Qianqian threw a pillow at him in disdain. "Get dressed. Haha." Shen Jilia rummaged through the fridge but found nothing but instant noodles and milk. In the end, he went downstairs and bought some bread. After processing it, he poured a glass of milk and turned it into a delicious breakfast. By the time Yi Qianqian finished washing up, Shen Jielia had already made breakfast and was waiting for her. Just as he took a bite of the bread, Shen Jielia received a call. Jielia, where are you? I'm in Kingstown. Chapter 1850. Shen Jielia was holding the phone normally, but Yi Qianqian could clearly hear the voice coming from the other end. Yi Qianqian picked up the bread and took a bite without saying a word. Shen Jielia glanced at Yi Qianqian, then stood up and walked to the balcony. Yi Qianqian looked at him and felt a little guilty. Wasn't she being too selfish? She knew that Shen Jilia's grandmother didn't like her, but she still wanted to be with Shen Jilia. But Shen Jilia's parents seemed to have a good impression of her. Yi Qianqian felt a little conflicted. When she saw Shen Jilia's helpless and angry expression, she took a sip of milk and stood up. Shen Jilia looked over and looked at Yi Qianqian with a puzzled expression. Yi Qianqian didn't walk toward him. Instead, she picked up her bag and slung it over her shoulder. I'm going to work. You haven't finished your breakfast yet. Yeah. Yi Qianqian walked over and drank the milk in one gulp. She picked up the bread and ate it as she walked. Shen Jilia wanted to say something, but the phone call seemed to have become a storm. When Yi Qianqian walked out of the corridor, her heart was empty. She finished the bread quickly and pressed the button for the elevator. No hurry. No hurry. Who knew what it would be like after 2 years? Perhaps, as Shen Jilia's grandmother had said, she would die at the age of 28. Or perhaps, as the blind uncle had said, she had been harmed by a villain. Or perhaps, neither of them had been accurate, and because she had revealed the secret of heaven, God had changed her fate and given her and Shen Jilia a happy life. Ding! The elevator arrived at the station. There was someone inside, but Yi Qianqian didn't notice. She walked in absent-mindedly. Her mind was clouded, and she stood inside the elevator. The elevator remained silent. The person behind her suddenly said, "You haven't pressed the button for the elevator yet." It sounded like a man in his 30s. Yi Qianqian was startled by his sudden words. She instinctively looked back and saw a man dressed in black and wearing a black cap. He was very tall, and his face was mostly covered by the cap. Yi Qianqian could only see the purple pimples on half of his face. She only glanced at it for a moment before she snapped back to her senses. She turned her head and pressed the button for the first floor. After he pressed it, he suddenly remembered. She did forget to press the elevator button, but the man inside had obviously been standing there for a long time. He also knew to remind her that she hadn't pressed the button, but why didn't he come up and press the button himself? Yi Qianqian found the man a little strange and subconsciously turned her head to look at him. The man seemed to notice that Yi Qianqian was looking at him. He reached out to press down on the brim of his hat. As if he was deliberately lowering his voice, he asked, "What are you looking at? How fierce." Chapter 1851. As he shouted, he strode forward and reached out to snatch it. Yi Qianqian's hand was knocked away, and she felt a burning pain. When she looked up, the man reached out and pushed her away at the same time. His hand quickly reached forward. Yi Qianqian clearly saw a cold glint flash past her eyes. Yi Qianqian screamed and fell backward. The cold light passed through the place where she had just been standing and missed. The man's face, which was only half exposed, was a little ferocious. He clutched the small white thing in his hand tightly and walked toward Yi Qianqian without a word. Yi Qianqian's face turned pale, and she screamed, "Ah! Help!" She retreated backward in panic and clumsiness. "Who's there?" A loud shout came from outside. The man in black immediately turned around and saw the security guard behind him. He gritted his teeth and glared at Yi Qianqian. Then, he ran to the emergency exit and disappeared without a trace. When the security guard saw Yi Qianqian, he immediately ran up and asked, "Miss, are you okay?" Yi Qianqian felt relieved. Her heart was beating so fast that it felt like it was about to jump out. She looked up at the security guard's face and suddenly realized that her body was trembling. She collapsed to the ground. Yi Qianqian immediately opened her bag. With trembling hands, she took out her phone and dialed Shen Jilia's number. Shen Jilia's line was busy. "Hello, please don't hang up. The number you have dialed is busy." Before the mechanical female voice could finish speaking, the call was picked up. "Hello." It was Shen Jilia's voice. Yi Qianqian's heart trembled violently. She pouted and tears fell down her face. She shouted, "Old Shen, I was almost killed." When Shen Jielia picked up Yi Qianqian, she was sitting in the security booth with red eyes. When she saw Shen Jielia coming over, Yi Qianqian stood up and threw herself at him. She sniffled and said, "Let's move. It was so scary. I thought I was going to die." Yi Qianqian's body was trembling, and Shen Jilia's heart was also trembling. He hugged her and whispered, "Don't be afraid. I'm here. Don't go to work today. Let's go home first." "Okay." Yi Qianqian nodded. She felt like her whole body was about to melt. Yi Qianqian was still a little traumatized when she went upstairs. Shen Jilia called Yi Qianqian to apply for a leave of absence and explained the situation to her. He then started packing his luggage and said, "Let's stay in a hotel for a few days. We'll move in when I find an apartment." Yi Qianqian hugged him and looked up at him. She said, "Why don't I ask my sister or Lily if there are any vacant houses available? Why don't we buy their second-hand houses?" "Sure, you decide. I still have to renovate, decorate, and wait for the new house. I don't think I can stay here anymore. Old Shen, do you think that person will come back for me?" "Don't think too much, it won't happen." "But Grandma and Uncle Blind told me to be careful of villains. Could this drug addict be a villain? I feel so scared." "It's okay. Don't think too much." Shen Jilia tapped her on the forehead. "Your brain is so active, and your imagination is so rich. How could you be willing to be a comics reviewer? You should draw a comic yourself." Chapter 1852. Shen Jilia found it a little funny, but he also felt a little defeated. He wanted to laugh, but he couldn't. "Why can't I even change the subject? Be good. Don't be afraid. It'll be fine." Yi Qianqian still found it a little strange. She looked up and asked, "What if he comes back to look for me?" "He won't. He won't be able to find you. We'll stay outside for a few days. When we find a place to live, we'll come back and move." "Okay." Yi Qianqian still felt a little scared. After thinking about it, she went to look for the remote surveillance camera she had bought in the past. She had bought it for fun, but Yi Qianqian had never used it. It was two small cameras with powerful night vision capabilities. Although it wasn't particularly expensive and the quality wasn't very high, it was enough to ensure her safety. Yi Qianqian plugged in the two devices and placed one of them on the shoe cabinet in the entryway. The shoe cabinet was very high, and there were ornaments on it. She placed the small camera behind the ornaments, and the angle of view just happened to cover the entire living room. Surveillance camera? Shen Jilia looked at the gadgets that Yi Qianqian was fiddling with. He chuckled and asked, "Is this kind of surveillance useful?" "It doesn't matter if it's useful or not. Anyway, it's just sitting there. I'll just use it. I don't feel very comfortable." Yi Qianqian looked at Shen Jilia with a little grievance. What had just happened had really scared her. Yi Qianqian had lived for 26 years, and she had never encountered such a thing. In the past, she had always felt that such things were very far away from her. But when she really encountered it, Yi Qianqian suddenly realized that in fact, death was actually around her. If he was unlucky, he might be ambushed while walking on the street or going down the stairs and lose his life. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that the world was extremely scary. Yi Qianqian installed another small camera in the room. After looking for a long time for an angle, she finally decided to place it at the top of the wardrobe. She connected it to the internet. The phone screen already displayed all the movements in the entire room. Shen Jilia watched her toss and turn and let her do as she pleased. He was glad that she was fine. Yi Qianqian packed a few changes of clothes and took the computer with her. After confirming that all the valuables were there, Yi Qianqian walked out. After packing up, Yi Qianqian gave Yi Yuyu a call. Yi Yuyu answered the call very quickly. When she saw that it was Yi Qianqian, she was pleasantly surprised. "Sis? Yuyu, where are you?" "I'm at home. Do you want to come over? It just so happens that I made some small cakes. Come over and have a taste." After she said that, she suddenly remembered that it was Monday. "Are you going to work today? I asked for leave." Sob, Yuyu, I was scared to death just now." Yi Qianqian began to complain, but she quickly shut her mouth and said, "I'll go to your place. Wait for me." "Yeah, come on." Yi Yuyu looked at the time. It was past 9 am. Shenjilia's car had been in the garage for a long time. It hadn't been driven for more than half a month, so it was covered in a layer of dust. She said, "I thought you drove it away. What a waste of you. Let's take it to the car wash." "Okay, get in the car first." Shenjilia opened the door for her. The moment Yi Qianqian got into the car, Shenjilia felt as if someone was staring at him. The feeling was fleeting, but after looking around, he didn't notice anything amiss. Chapter 1853. Shenjilia narrowed his eyes and secretly raised his guard. He had always been sensitive, so this feeling shouldn't have come from nowhere. "What's wrong?" Yi Qianqian noticed that Shenjilia hadn't moved for a long time. She reached out and tugged at his hand. Shenjilia shook his head gently. "I'm fine. Sit tight." Yi Qianqian fastened her seatbelt, took the car door, and sat down. Shenjilia looked left and right again before finally getting into the car. He fastened his seatbelt and started the engine. When Yi Qianqian saw him looking around warily, she felt a little creeped out. Shenjilia was never like that. His behavior today was very unusual. "Old Shen, what did you see?" Yi Qianqian asked. She suddenly felt a shiver run down her spine. He turned his head abruptly. Behind him was a beautiful luxury car with a pitch-black interior. There didn't seem to be anything strange. On the other hand, Shenjilia was shocked by Yi Qianqian's reaction. "What's wrong?" Shenjilia's expression was one of shock. Yi Qianqian's heart was about to jump out of her chest. "I feel like I'm going crazy. What should I do? I've been so paranoid." "Don't be afraid. Relax," Shenjilia said as he drove the car out of the underground parking lot. His voice was soft and steady, as if it contained an unknown magic that hypnotized and soothed her. Shenjilia didn't focus all his attention on that. Instead, he kept an eye on his surroundings and the rearview mirror. Shenjilia exited the bustling district and got on the highway. When Yi Qianqian heard him speak, she suddenly felt that something was amiss. She said, "You're opening it the wrong way around." "Yes, I know." Shenjilia kept glancing at the rearview mirror as he drove. Let the car get used to the feeling of being on the road. It's not a bad idea to take a detour. Ah! This was the first time Yi Qianqian had heard of such a thing. She looked at Shenjilia and realized that he was a little distracted. "What are you doing?" "Shoo, sit quietly." Shenjilia drove steadily. When he suddenly sped up, Yi Qianqian's heart skipped a beat. She sat there without a word. However, when he looked at the rear-view mirrors on the left and right, as well as the mirror in the middle, there didn't seem to be anything strange. However, Shenjilia's reaction made everyone nervous. Yi Qianqian asked hesitantly, "Is someone following us?" Shenjilia didn't reply. He just increased the speed of the car. Yi Qianqian looked back. It was not until all the cars behind them had disappeared that Shenjilia slowed down. "Was someone following us just now?" Yi Qianqian was already sweating profusely. She looked at Shenjilia with fear and worry in her eyes. Shenjilia shook his head. "No, it was just a false alarm." "Is that so?" "Well, I just wanted to give it a try, just in case. If it's really the person from this morning, then if he follows us to Yuyu's house, Yuyu and third brother Li will probably be in danger. But fortunately, I was overthinking it." "Why are you being so paranoid all of a sudden?" Yi Qianqian had a nagging feeling that things weren't that simple. Shenjilia wasn't like her. Shenjilia must have seen or sensed something that made him so wary. "What do you mean by fine?" "I was obviously infected by you." Shenjilia chuckled. He held onto the steering wheel and said helplessly, "Turn on the GPS. I'm lost." Chapter 1854. By the time they reached Yi Yuyu's house, it had already been 2 hours since they had left. Looking at the time, it was almost 12 o'clock. This was one of the famous villas in Kingstown. The people who lived here were either rich or powerful. All the cars coming and going were luxury cars. Shenjilia's flashy Porsche looked very mediocre in comparison. Shenjilia and Yi Qianqian searched through their memories, but they couldn't find Li Jinnan's house. In the end, they gave Yi Yuyu a call. Yi Yuyu was in the middle of cooking. When she received Yi Qianqian's call, she laughed out loud. "Where are you right now?" "Ah, we're at number 3. I live in room 8. It has a black iron gate, and there's a pot of red roses at the door. Go south, and you'll see it when you head east." Yi Qianqian was silent for a moment before she yelled, "Can you tell me which direction is up, down, left, and right? Who can understand north, south, east, and west?" Yi Yuyu laughed out loud. "Isn't Shen Jilia coming with you? Get him to take you. I'm cooking now. I'm hanging up." When Yi Qianqian heard the busy tone, she gritted her teeth. Shen Jilia glanced at her and asked, "Where?" "South, then east." Shen Jilia immediately stepped on the accelerator and made a U-turn. Yi Qianqian widened her eyes and asked, "You know where it is?" "Not everyone is like you who can't tell the difference between north, south, east, and west." Shen Jilia was a little smug. "You haven't been a living map for so many years for nothing." "Bah! I have a GPS when I go out. I just don't know the house number." She put her hands on her hips and puffed out her chest as she said, "If you have the guts, dial the house number and use the navigation now. I guarantee that we'll be there in no time." All right. I got it." Shen Jilia couldn't help but laugh. "There are biscuits in the back of the car. Take them out and give them to Yuyu." "Ah, when did you buy the cookies?" Shen Jilia was a little embarrassed. He rubbed his nose and said, "It's been a long time. My colleague gave me this last time. I can't go to Yuyu's house empty-handed, so I took it as a gift." "Aya, she's my sister. Why are you being so polite?" Although he said that, he still turned around and took out the biscuit. It was quite an expensive brand, and the packaging looked quite high-end. "But how long have you put it there? Can it still be eaten?" "Sure. This kind of thing has a shelf life of at least half a year, right? It's edible." In fact, Shen Jilia wasn't sure either. In the end, he flipped through the expiration date. After confirming that there were no problems with it, he finally felt at ease. "We're here." Yi Qianqian saw a particularly luxuriant cluster of red roses. They climbed up the railing and sprouted a bud. Behind the black iron railings was a beautifully landscaped courtyard. One could tell at a glance that it was huge. Chapter 1855. "Humph. It's been so long since you've come to see me. How dare you say that?" Yi Yuyu's belly was propped up. She looked great. Her skin was rosy and smooth. Yi Qianqian had seen a few pregnant women before, but none of them looked like Yi Yuyu. One look was enough to tell that she was living a good life. Yi Yuyu's steps were light as she carried the dishes out. If it weren't for her belly, it would be hard to tell that she was pregnant. "Tisk, is your man back for dinner?" "Of course he is," Yi Yuyu replied briskly. She looked at the clock hanging in the middle of the living room and said, "It's almost time." She turned to the kitchen and took out the dishes that she had just prepared. Yi Qianqian washed her hands and helped to get the bowls and chopsticks. She had just scooped the rice when Yi Yuyu suddenly said, 3, 2, 1. Ding dong. The doorbell rang just in time. Yi Yuyu immediately rushed to the door. Yi Qianqian was shocked when she saw that and said, "No way. How did she hear him coming back from so far away? Or was Yi Yuyu just used to Li Jinnan's return at this time?" The door opened. Yi Yuyu was like a lively bird as she flew into Li Jinnan's arms. Li Jinnan caught her in his arms. His eyes were filled with tenderness. "You're back." "Yeah," Li Jinnan replied without much emotion. He then noticed that there were guests inside. Yi Yuyu pulled Li Jinnan along and said, "My sister is here, and so is Shen Jilia." She lowered her voice and whispered, "He might even be my brother-in-law in the future." When Shen Jilia saw Yi Yuyu's expression, the smile on his face was pure and unpretentious. He looked truly happy. Yi Yuyu had stayed with the Shen family for a period of time. Shen Jilia had seen her almost every day. At that time, Yi Yuyu had only been deliberately trying to please him. The only other thing she had shown was her obvious depression. Thank goodness. Thank goodness that she had divorced Shen Luoan. Otherwise, Yi Yuyu would never have been happy in this life. Li Jinnan laughed as he was pulled up by Yi Yuyu. His eyes were fixed on Yi Yuyu's feet. He didn't forget to remind her, "Be careful. The floor is slippery." "I won't. I walk around every day. It's fine." She tugged at Li Jinnan and said to Shen Jilia and Yi Qianqian, "We'll go wash our hands first. Sit down. It's time to eat." Yi Qianqian had never been one to be pretentious. She immediately sat down and poured herself and Shen Jilia a bowl of rice. "You're living such a good life. Every day, you come up with new ways to cook for your husband. You wait for your husband to go to work while you wait at home to give birth," Yi Qianqian said with a hint of envy in her voice. Of course, Shen Jilia could tell. He raised his eyebrows slightly and said, "You can do the same in the future." "Of course, I want to be like this in the future, but we'll talk about it when I have children. If I don't have children and don't work, then I'll be too lazy." Yi Qianqian looked at Shen Jilia with yearning in her eyes. "Can you afford to support me in the future?" "That goes without saying." Shen Jilia extended his hand and tapped Yi Qianqian's forehead. He said, "Even if you asked me to raise 8 or 10 more children, I'd be able to afford it." "Bah! 8 or 10 children. Who do you want to have them with?" "With you, of course. Who else can I have them with?" Chapter 1856. Nonsense. Uncle Blind Man also said that it's just a possibility. It might not happen. Why are you so concerned about it? The smile on Yi Qianqian's face disappeared completely. She sighed softly. Yi Yuyu and Li Jinnan walked over quickly. When she saw Yi Qianqian's unhappy expression, Yi Yuyu walked over curiously and asked, "What's wrong?" "Sup? Yuyu, what do you think I'll do if I can't have children in the future?" Yi Qianqian looked at Yi Yuyu with hurt written all over her face. Yi Yuyu laughed and sat down on the chair that Li Jinnan had brought out for her. She replied, "How is that possible? Why can't you have children out of nowhere?" As she spoke, Yi Yuyu's face was full of ambiguity. She looked at Yi Qianqian and then at Shen Jilia and asked, "Are the two of you preparing to have children? Didn't they just get back together not too long ago?" Yi Yuyu was a little surprised. She hadn't expected that after getting back together, not only would they be talking about marriage, but they would also be preparing to get pregnant. Yi Qianqian pouted her lips. She felt defeated and replied, "That's not it. I've just encountered a few things that haven't been going my way lately." He told Yi Yuyu in detail about her visit to Shen Jilia's parents in the capital, as well as what Shen Jilia's grandmother and the blind uncle had said. Yi Qianqian's bitter expression, coupled with the aggrieved expression on her face, made her look extremely pitiful. "Yuyu, I'm so envious of you now. You have such a happy family, and your belly is so big. What if I really can't have children in the future, just like they said?" "That won't happen. That old lady is a fraud." Yi Yuyu was a little annoyed. "She's spouting nonsense. She even said that I'd get into big trouble when I turn 25. I'm 26 now. What big trouble can I get into?" Yi Qianqian's eyes widened when she heard that. "That can't be. When did she say that?" 2 years ago, Shen Jilia replied. "But you're really in big trouble now. Have you forgotten?" Yi Qianqian covered her mouth in disbelief. "That Guan Gai and Shin Luoan are in jail. Have you forgotten?" "That's right. Of course not. That was when I was 26 years old. She said I was 25 years old. You hung a steel wire and fell from it." She couldn't help but link the incident with Yi Yuyu. "Didn't you stay in the hospital for many days at that time? Wasn't that a big deal?" Yi Qianqian was a little paranoid. Yi Yuyu was at a loss for words. All right. If that's the case, aren't I perfectly fine right now?" "That's different." Yi Qianqian panicked. "They're saying that I won't be able to have children in the future. It's over. It's over. What should I do?" "That won't happen. You've been the only one thinking about it." Shen Jilia held her hand. He felt helpless and defeated. "They're just saying it's a possibility. Trust me. I'll tell you about it when we get home tonight. You'll know. I should give her a simple treatment tonight. Otherwise, Yi Qianqian's mental health will deteriorate sooner or later." Shen Jilia was filled with regret. "If I'd known, I wouldn't have been in such a hurry and brought you home. In the end, Yi Qianqian knew that she might have gone overboard. She quickly pressed his hand down and said, all right. I'll stop talking. Let's eat. Chapter 1857. When Yi Qianqian heard Shen Jilia's words, she didn't say a word. She only looked up at Yi Yuyu. Yi Yuyu shrugged and said, I think you're overthinking it. You're too scared to think that it might be true. If you think about it from a different perspective, things will be much better. Think about it from a different perspective? That's right. Yi Yuyu looked at Yi Qianqian and took a sip of the soup. Perhaps it's just an excuse that the old madam of the Shen family wants to object to you being together with Jilia. Perhaps it's just a lie that she came up with to make you back off? But the blind uncle in our town said it too. Who's the blind uncle? He's a blind man in Yun Town who's possessed by a deity. He's more than 10 years older than Dad, but he looks older. You've probably met him before. I see. Yi Yuyu nodded her head. She was silent for a moment before saying, perhaps the old lady knew that you were going to look for the blind uncle and colluded with him? How is that possible? Yi Qianqian found it absurd. Why is it impossible? Didn't you say that the blind uncle was possessed by a deity? The old lady claimed to be half a deity. Perhaps they have a mysterious channel in a world that we can't see that allows them to communicate with each other. Then, they colluded with each other to deceive you. Yi Yuyu's words sent a shiver down everyone's spine. Li Jinnan felt a little uncomfortable. He cleared his throat and picked up a piece of food for her. Eat your food. Don't be superstitious. That's right. Shen Jilia also picked up a piece of cake for Yi Qianqian. With a serious expression he said, this is the era of science. Don't believe in such nonsense. Even if it's true, it doesn't matter. Medical science is so advanced now. Yi Yuyu nodded her head vehemently. When Li Jinnan saw that, he chimed in and said, at most, we can have a test tube baby. The child will still be our own. When Yi Qianqian heard that, her lips twitched. Yi Yuyu nudged Li Jinnan and glared at him. She then looked at Yi Qianqian and said, don't listen to my husband. Don't let your imagination run wild. If God is useful, what's the point of science? Yeah, Yuyu is right. Let's eat. Let's not talk about this anymore. Shen Jilia picked up the bowl and stuffed it into Yi Qianqian's hand. Only then did Yi Qianqian stop talking and bury her head in her food. Yi Yuyu sipped her soup and looked at Li Jinnan. She asked, I heard that our company is preparing to adapt a novel into a television series. What's it called? 99 Days of Hidden Marriage, Li Jinnan said. It's about a female gangster who was framed and had her tongue cut off. She became mute. Later, she married her Prince Charming. 3 years later, she got pregnant and was kidnapped. She died. Then she was reborn. It can't be. Isn't her husband going to save her? No, I'm going on a date with the white moonlight in my heart.